Warning, this fic contains many dark and adult themes. For the full list provided by the author, please check the description below and proceed with caution. Welcome back, this is Veritaserum by Severitus 812, JessalynMichele, Book 3 of Harry Potter and 7 Years of Chaos. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoy, and subscribe for future stories. Please check the description for a full list of tags, and the link to drop a kudos for the original author. With that out of the way, let's get started. Chapter 22, Ravenclaw vs. Slytherin. "I'm here," Potter called as he entered Severus' office. "You are," Severus agreed as he looked Potter over. His cheeks were flushed from the chill outside, but his eyes were bright and sparkling along with a grin on his face that made Severus believe his trip had gone well. "Got you something," Potter said as he dug in his pockets. He pulled out a blue bag with the Honeyduke's logo on it and reversed the shrinking charm he had on it before handing it over to Severus. "It's sugar quills." Severus smiled as Harry threw himself in his chair. "Thank you," he said genuinely. "How was your day?" "Good," Potter said. "Guess what I did?" "Something illegal, no doubt," Severus scoffed. "No," Potter glared at him slightly for his comment. "I bought Ron an owl for his birthday." "Did you?" Severus watched as Potter puffed his chest out proudly and repressed the urge to smirk at the Draco-like gesture. "I was unaware it was Mr. Weasley's birthday." "It's not till March, but I thought he looked sad, cause of Scabbers being an actual fucking rat instead of just a pet one, so I bought him an owl." Severus was so taken aback by Potter's reasoning that he didn't even bother to correct his language. "That was considerate of you," he said. "I personally had not considered Ronald's loss when I kidnapped his rat." "I did," Potter preened. "Saw he looked sad and I fixed it, did I?" Severus was truly impressed with Potter's decision. It showed no small amount of empathy that he was able to. "And now I'm probably not his boggart." "God damn it. What were you thinking when you decided to purchase Ronald a new familiar?" Severus asked casually as he shuffled a stack of essays on his desk. "Specifically, if you wouldn't mind elaborating." Severus could practically sense Potter furrowing his brow as he thought it through. "Well, I thought Ron was sad and figured I could fix it, so I did." "And you believed that you could also eliminate his current fear by doing this?" "Yep," Potter grinned again. "Probably worked, didn't it?" "Probably," Severus agreed. It was impossible to determine if Potter had undertaken the task due to altruistic empathy or because he had seen an opportunity to fulfill a personal goal. Though if the end result was him being kind to a friend, Severus supposed the intent behind the act was unimportant. "How did your meeting with Black go?" he asked instead. Potter shuffled uneasily at the question, and Severus worried that Black had irritated the child in some way before he realized that Potter looked guilty, not unhappy. "It was fine," Potter said hesitantly. "He talks a lot, Severus smiled to himself as he realized why Potter felt guilty. It was for the same reason that he spoke with him before agreeing to meet Black today. He was needlessly concerned that Severus would be unhappy if he were too comfortable with Black. "I am pleased to hear it went well," Severus said, attempting to interject as much warmth as possible in his tone. "Was Black cordial to your friends as well?" "Yeah," Potter relaxed as he correctly judged that Severus was not displeased with him. "He's awfully social, ain't he? Rosmita said he's an incorrigible flirt, too." Severus nearly scowled as he remembered the way that the witches in their year used to trip over themselves for Black. Of course, once it was revealed that the man was not interested in women, then a decent portion of males became interested in him instead. "He is," Severus agreed lightly. "Did you speak with him about your date offer from the older Mr. Weasley?" "No," Potter rolled his eyes. "What if he laughed, huh?" Severus steeled himself as he prepared to do something he never imagined he would: defend Sirius Black. "Harry, I do not believe that Black would have laughed at you," he said. "I am entirely confident that he would have been incredibly pleased with an opportunity to discuss the matter with you." Potter watched him for a moment before shrugging. "It's fine," he waved his hand negligibly. "I'll figure it out myself." "What specifically is causing you distress?" Severus asked. He hadn't anticipated discussing dating when he took on Potter as his ward, which was rather short-sighted of him as Potter was destined to eventually become a hormonal teenager. More than that, Potter would be a popular target for the affection of others. He was famous, powerful, displayed a confident front to the other students, and now that he was growing normally, he was a rather handsome child. Thus, dating was inevitable. and if Potter refused to speak with someone else, then the task fell to Severus as his guardian to guide him through the daunting phase. I dunno, I just don't get what Fred wants, you know. What do ya do on a date? Would he want to hold hands like Hermione and Theo do? Have sex? Kiss? Severus choked on his own salvia at Potter's casual inclusion of intercourse, alongside the more innocent suggestions of holding hands and kissing. Not sex, Severus sputtered out. Fuck, you're 13, Harry. Severus himself had not become sexually active until his 6th year, though, as the potions master for a boarding school of co-ed students, Severus was not unaware that students began having sexual contact as young as 13, he just preferred his ward did not indulge in them. Potter gave him a curious look. So that is too young to be involved in a sexual relationship, Severus said firmly. Much, much too young. You know, Potter grimaced and looked beyond Severus towards the wall. You know I've done that before, he said in what he clearly thought was a casual tone yet was strained and quivered ever so slightly. So I'm not too young. Pitiful. Despite how horribly uncomfortable you are about to feel, I need you to listen to me closely, understood? Severus told Potter firmly. He waited until Potter nodded before he continued. Any sexual activity that you partook in up until now has not been consensual, safe, or pleasurable. Those experiences are vastly different from reciprocal intercourse with a partner of equal standing. Do you understand? Potter continued staring at the wall, and despite his bright red face, he appeared thoughtful. I see, consented to most of them, Potter admitted quietly. But can we talk about something else? Severus wanted to, dear God he wanted to, especially if the topic was causing Potter to revert back to his rarely heard stammer, but Potter needed to understand the differences. And since Severus impulsively obliviated the mind healer, he supposed it was now his role to explain it to the pitiful child. If you would allow me to say one more thing, then we can discuss something else, he said. You were a child, a hungry, cold, homeless child. Agreeing to an act in order to acquire food, money, or shelter does not make you an equal nor consenting participant. Does that make sense? Potter shrugged after a moment, and Severus saw as he slowly measured his breaths before his face resembled something aside from a heavily scarred tomato. Black said he's coming to the game this weekend, he said in what was perhaps the least subtle subject change in history. Severus relaxed back in his chair at the new topic. Is he aware he will either be cheering for Slytherin or working against his godson? Potter smirked slightly now that Severus allowed the much simpler conversation. Told him that, said he had to wear green cause Chang's a twit, did I? Severus hummed at Potter's insult to Miss Cho Chang, a 4th-year Ravenclaw student who was rather a twit of a girl. Not that Severus could agree aloud. Do you think you guys are gonna sit together? Potter asked curiously. Severus snorted and then immediately regretted it, as Potter seemed to slump slightly at his obvious disdain. Possibly, he said as he quickly backpedaled. I imagine Black will sit with Lupin in the teacher's stand, which is where I typically sit. You could sit with my friends if you wanted, sir, Potter grinned. I'm sure they'd be less annoying. Severus grimaced fully as he considered what would undoubtedly be a much more annoying section to sit in. I'll take my chances with the mutt, he said grimly. Potter laughed and stretched his back as he got to his feet. I should get to dinner before Susan comes hunting me down. Severus pretended to shudder at the threat of Miss Bones, which accomplished his goal in making Potter chuckle again. As Potter was about to exit the office, Severus recalled the mind healer's notes outlining how Severus is unaffectionate with his ward, which was both unfair and untrue in Severus' opinion. Potter turned and gave him a curious look as Severus called his name. Yeah, you did a kind thing in purchasing Mr. Weasley an owl, Severus said, which was true regardless of Potter's reasoning. I am proud of you. Potter blinked at Severus and twisted his lips into a pursed position. Thanks, he said slowly. I'll see you later. Severus let his head strike the back of his chair as he leant back rather roughly. It was entirely tempting to inform Black that he would be required to show Potter affection and handle any relationship question. Then he considered actually requesting Black do a single thing for his ward and changed his mind. Despite how unbearably uncomfortable and unnatural it may be, Severus would handle it himself. Black would likely mess it up anyway. The man was a moron. Contessa Juliana Zabini. Greetings, Contessa. I trust that France is treating you well. My ward informed me that you enjoyed the holidays in France, and I hope that this is true. I am reaching out to you with a particular problem relating to my ward that I am hoping you may be able to assist me with. Potter Harry has been diagnosed with a mind illness and could be treated with Muggle medication. However, the United Kingdom does not offer this medication to minors, as of yet. France, in their superior medical advances, does. My hope is that you may be able to acquire this medication for Harry. If you believe this will not be an infringement upon your time, please let me know, and I can send the precise medication needed. If not, I will take him over the summer. However, the sooner he is treated, the better. Kindly, Severus T. Snape. The day of the Ravenclaw and Slytherin match dawned brightly. Despite the sun shining, Severus did not envy the players as they planned to fly through the skis in the bitterly cold winter air. He gave the Slytherin team nods of approval as they all ate hearty breakfasts. Severus was pleased to see that Potter was uncharacteristically eating enthusiastically as he laughed and talked with his friends. He also kept shooting hopeful looks towards the hall doors before sending guilty ones towards Severus, which was rather easily interpreted. Severus could easily admit to himself that he worried about Potter's relationship with Black. Black was easygoing, social, affectionate, and kind, all the things Severus himself was not. Lupin had diminished his opportunity to bond with Potter the moment he witnessed Potter in two vulnerable moments. It may be unfair of the child to hold that against Lupin, but Severus had not complained because he found the situation perfectly tolerable. But now, especially after pursuing the notes from the mind healer, Severus was in a position where he should encourage Potter and Black's relationship for the benefit of his ward, which he understood to be the reasonable route he should take. Yet he worried that Potter would find Black preferable to himself eventually, and where would that leave him? Pinning after a position in the child's life that he hardly deserved. It would be pathetic. But Potter's guilty glances were causing Severus to feel his own guilt. He finished his coffee as he mentally chided himself. Worrying over Potter's connection to Black would not cement his place in the child's life. He would have to instead show Potter that he could have both of them, and that Severus would not be displeased to share him. Even if it was a lie. Boys, Severus nodded to Potter and Draco. Are you prepared for today? Of course, Draco said with a bright smile. Ravenclaw doesn't stand a chance. Thanks to the Seeker, of course, Potter scoffed. Slytherin chasers could use some work. Oi, Draco threw a napkin at Potter, as the rest of their merry band of misfits laughed. Severus saw Potter subtly glance towards the door again, and internally sighed. What time is Black arriving? He asked casually. Potter turned his head back down to his plate, and looked up at Severus through his lashes. Dunno, Potter said shortly. My assistance is required to supervise the students as they head to the pitch soon. If you would like, I could point Black to the team locker room when he arrives. Severus offered in as neutral of a tone as he could. Potter looked up properly at him and narrowed his eyes in suspicion, which Severus thought was rather unfair. That's okay, he said. If he wants to find me then, I'm sure he can do it by himself, can't he? Severus inclined his head in silent acknowledgement. If you insist, he said, I must go ensure that no children accidentally find themselves in the forest instead of the pitch. It would be a shame if Hogwarts lost half the Gryffindors. Potter's friends snickered, and with a last wish of luck, Severus left the hall to go supervise the students. He entertained himself by docking points from the other houses as students shoved and fought their way to the pitch. It was frigidly cold, and Severus sincerely hoped that the teams flying today were intelligent enough to utilize warming charms, which, judging from the casual way Potter and Draco strolled to the locker rooms, it seemed as if his team was. Severus didn't miss the way Potter glanced around as he walked. While his vigilant glances were not unusual, the hopeful look in his eyes was. Finally, about 10 minutes before the game was set to start, and the last of the students had entered the stands, Severus saw the wild mane of hair that could only belong to Black coming through the gates. He grit his teeth and rolled his shoulders as he prepared himself. This is for Potter, he reminded himself sternly. Black, he called, catching the man's attention. Snape, Black said cordially as he jogged up to him. Have you seen Harry? Severus was begrudgingly impressed to see a Slytherin scarf wrapped around the man's neck. He was sure Potter would appreciate the gesture. He is in the Slytherin locker room. Severus pointed towards the lockers. I believe he has been waiting on you to arrive. Great, Black gave Severus an attempt at a smile that looked much more like a grimace. Ah, thanks then. Severus nodded silently, as he felt as though he had exhausted his ability to remain cordial. He watched as Black ran to the locker rooms, an excited smile making him appear much younger. His duty now done, Severus made his way to the teacher's box. He bit back a scathing retort when he arrived, and Lupin immediately asked him if he had seen Black. "I believe he was wishing Potter luck," he said stiffly, as he wedged himself between Minerva and Filius. "Rough day, Severus," Filius asked sympathetically. "And about to get worse," Severus muttered as Black bound up the stairs to the box. "Minnie," he cried, "it's been so long." "Not long enough," Minerva responded, her tone warm despite her words. "I heard you've made a nuisance of yourself in Rosmeta's pub." "You know me," Black smiled. "Rosie complains, but she loves me." Lupin sighed in a faux put upon way, as Black pulled a Slytherin scarf from his pocket and draped it around his neck. "We are supporting Harry," he said firmly. "No pretending to be impartial today." Severus clenched his jaw and decided to watch as the teams entered the pitch, to avoid the lovesick eyes the two grown men seated in the row in front of him were making. "There's Harry," Black said. "Merlin, he looks sharp, doesn't he?" "Yes," Lupin agreed. "He's an excellent flyer." Lupin has seen one game, Severus thought harshly. He's hardly a judge of Potter's talents. "How do you feel about your chances, Severus?" Filius asked loudly. "Think Flint'll win the cup for his last year here?" "Of course," Severus said. "Lord knows he'll need something to put on his resumes." Filius chuckled, as did Minerva, and Severus felt a rather unprecedented feel of camaraderie amongst his fellow staff. "They would still have to beat my Lions," Minerva said, and Wood is maniacally practicing day in and day out. The teams took to the air, and Severus watched as Potter drifted higher than the rest of the players, and began lazily making laps around the field. "Sorry, Minnie, but my bet's on Slytherin this year," Black said cheerfully. "Harry nearly caught the snitch last game, even after the Dementors took to the field." "He caught it the year before after Fred Weasley shattered his arm as well," Severus automatically added. "Fred broke Harry's arm?" Black asked as he tracked Harry with his eyes. "Thought he was sweet on him." Minerva looked towards Severus, who grimaced and lifted a shoulder. "Fred is 15, she said stiffly, "and a hooligan to boot." "Sounds like oh shit," Black gasped as Harry dove towards the ground quickly, causing the Chang girl to follow behind. Only 10 minutes in the game. It looks as if Slytherin seeker Harry Potter has spotted the snitch. The announcer, Lee Jordan, a fifth-year Gryffindor, yelled to boos from 3/4 of the students. "Don't boo my godson, you prats," Black cried indignantly. Severus nearly bit his tongue in half to prevent himself from commenting that Black used to have no difficulty booing Slytherin when he was a student. "This is for Potter," he chanted in his head as he watched his ward. Potter, less than 2 feet from the ground, suddenly pulled back on his broom and shot back towards the sky. Chang was not as lucky and nosedived into the ground. "It was a feint," Jordan shouted, now excited at Potter's tactic. Potter pulled off a feint, Chang crashes, and the score is 0-10 for Ravenclaw. Black jumped to his feet as he cheered loudly. "Did you see that, Mooney?" he yelled. "Harry's like a pro out there." "I told you he was good," Lupin said as he cheered alongside him. Severus lifted his hand lightly as Potter looked towards the box. Black, of course, waved obnoxiously. "I hate this sport," Severus muttered to Filius as Potter flipped his way across the field. "What's Harry's statistics on not getting injured during a match?" Filius asked. Severus thought of Potter's one game he was able to play in his second year where he shattered his arm. Then he was expelled for what should have been his second match. The third Slytherin game was cancelled due to Granger's petrification, and the only match Potter has played in this school year ended in a dead faint and an outrageous number of severe injuries. "Not good," Severus responded to Filius. "Then he's bound to be due for an injury-free game," Minerva said kindly as she patted Severus' knee. After clapping for Draco as he scored his second goal for Slytherin, Minerva's words were proven faulty. "Foul," Black screamed as Daniel Ingleby, the 7th-year beater on the Ravenclaw team, cracked Potter in the knee with his bat harshly enough that the noise reverberated through the stands. "God damn it," Severus hissed. "He'll fix it right." Black turned around and asked him nervously as Potter howled once, but continued to fly. "I doubt it," Severus said tightly, as he saw his ward's left leg hanging limply off the broom. "But he's good at controlling his magic," Black insisted. "Why wouldn't he fix it?" Severus glanced down and saw that Black did appear genuinely concerned. Harry's magic responds best when he is neither in pain nor in emotional turmoil, he said, and I believe a broken kneecap will count as considerable pain. There he goes, Lupin said as he pulled on Black's jacket. Potter sped towards the Ravenclaw posts. He was bent across his broom in a needless effort to move quicker towards his goal. Potter stretched his arm out and... Potter CATCHES the snitch, Jordan yelled. SLYTHEINWNS, 170-20. Severus applauded as he made his way to his feet, eager to get to Potter before the foolish child landed and attempted to walk on his leg. Moony, I'll catch you later, okay? Black said as he hurried after Severus. Snape, wait up. Severus barely slowed his walk to allow Black to catch up with him, curious as to what he wanted. Hey, he said, I thought maybe we could talk after the game, about Harry. What about him? Severus asked as they both quickly walked towards the pitch where, of fucking course, Potter was limping towards them. We'll talk later, Black murmured as he ran towards Potter. Harry, you did amazing. Thanks, Potter grinned before taking another step and wincing slightly. It was an odd moment to appreciate it, but Severus was mildly impressed by the child's pain threshold, though of course the understanding of how he acquired it was a sobering thought. Professor, Potter glanced down at his knee and back up at Severus. Think it's broken. Of course it is, sit you dunderhead, Severus growled without any real heat in his words. Potter flopped down on the ground and held out the snitch in his hand. I won, he said brightly. I am aware, Severus said. That feint was amazing, Black crowed as Severus cast a quick diagnostic charm. Where'd you learn that at? Over the summer, Snape thought I'd never get it, but I did. Severus snorted as he read the results of the charm, and relaxed slightly. I believe my concern was that you would not succeed in learning it at 3 a.m. in the dark, as you attempted human transfiguration. Potter grinned up at him, the high from winning the match clearly beating out any pain he may be feeling. You've shattered your knee. Would you like me to mend it or send you to Poppy? You, Potter said simply. Take that mutt, Severus thought smugly, as Black continued to dissect the game with Potter. Brachia memendo, he said with a gentle tap on Potter's knee. Brill, Potter stretched his leg out gingerly before hopping to his feet and waving at his approaching teammates. One more game, Draco yelled as he ran up to Potter. We just have to beat Gryffindor. As if that's hard, Flint snorted before clapping Potter on the shoulder. Good catch, Potter. Potter's hand twitched at the contact, and he easily stepped away from Flint, closer to Severus as he shrugged. Told you Chang's a twit, he scoffed. Draco laughed and fell in step beside Potter in front of Black and Severus. Susan's grabbing everyone else to go to the kitchen before they meet us in the common room, he explained, as Potter looked around them on their way back towards the castle. Hermione better not be bullying Mavis again, Potter warned him darkly. Mavis is your house elf, right? Black asked curiously. Why would Hermione be bullying him? She keeps telling him he should be free and making him come cling on to me, Potter scowled. Every time he sees Hermione, suddenly he's hugging on my legs and saying, Mavis will be being a better elf. It's gross, Draco added helpfully. You don't think elves should be freed? Severus sighed as Black's question set Potter off on a tangent that he himself had heard many times. Not only did Potter adamantly believe house elves should be free, but he also discussed the possibility of purchasing an extra wand and loaning it to Mavis. Potter's rant was interrupted by a loud whistle as the four of them approached the castle. Good game, little snake, one of the Weasley twins, likely Fred, called to him through a crowd of Gryffindor students. Thanks, Potter mumbled, his face turning as red as Weasley's robes. Your leg okay? Weasley called. Yeah. Wicked, so you can go to Hogsmeade with me on Valentine's Day. Potter managed to turn 2 shades redder as Draco and Black both chuckled. 10 points from Gryffindor for obscene remarks, Severus called as he saw Potter looked rather embarrassed. Weasley shrugged and winked at Potter, who quickly dragged Draco inside the castle with him. Why didn't you say yes? Draco laughed. Am not gonna fucking answer in front of a whole crowd, am I? Potter said indignantly. Should have told him to piss off, Black suggested as he leaned against the wall. Make him think you're not interested. Why? Potter asked curiously. Severus was only mildly insulted to see that Draco appeared to be hanging on Black's every word. "Potter will be unhappy if you fight with Black," Severus chanted to himself repeatedly. "Makes you seem more attractive," Black said. "Moony made me chase him around for years, and it drove me mad in a good way." Severus privately thought that perhaps Lupin was unwilling to commit to a man who seemed to have a different date every month, though it was none of his business. Potter glanced at Severus before shrugging at Black. "Maybe," he allowed. Draco lightly tugged on Potter's sleeve, consciously not making contact with his actual arm. "Come on, we can't have a party until we get there. We're the only ones who scored any points today." Potter laughed, and his face instantly brightened at the reminder of their win. Thanks for coming," he said to Black with a hint of uncertainty. "Suppose I'll probably see you in Hogsmeade next in a couple weeks." "Bring Fred," Black smiled. "Any kid who cracked the map's code has to be worth one date." "We'll see," Potter said. "Thanks for fixing my leg, Professor," he said to Severus. Severus waved his hand, used to Potter's unnecessary gratitudes for simple tasks. "Do try and be in your dorm by curfew," he said sternly, "and inform Miss Lovegood she should return to her own bed as well." Potter gave Severus a half-hearted salute as he ran towards the staircase with Draco, intentionally ignoring his instructions. "Miss Lovegood, you mean Luna, why's she in Harry's bed?" Severus silently groaned as he realized Black still requested an audience with him. He gestured towards the dungeons in an invitation to follow along to his office. "I believe her reasoning is that Potter's bed is warmer than hers, and Potter states that she is not there as he hides her beneath his cloak most mornings," Severus said dryly. That's weird, right?" "Not to Potter," Severus said as they entered his office, "though I doubt you wish to speak with me about Potter's sleep habits." "I didn't." Black pulled himself up straight and looked evenly at Severus. "I wanted to say that I appreciate you looking out for Harry these past couple years, but now—" "No," Severus interrupted him. "Absolutely not." "You didn't let me finish," Black said. "I'm his godfather." "I'm his guardian," Severus interrupted again. "No. You don't even like kids," Black accused. Severus lifted a brow at Black in an attempt to be as passively irritating as possible. "Potter is hardly a child, and I happen to be rather fond of him." "He's not a toy, Snape," Black snapped. "He's just a kid who needs someone that's more than rather fond of him." "I am extremely fond of him," Severus drawled, "and I have no intention of rescinding my guardianship to you." "What if Harry wants you to?" Severus faltered for a second as he considered it. "Do you even have a job, a way to support him, proper living arrangements for a teenager?" Severus asked. "I've had a couple job offers," Black said rather evasively. "I'm not in a rush, though." Severus snorted as he recalled the vast wealth that Black inherited. The man likely had no need to work a day in his life. "And I'm thinking about buying a house in the South End of London. Went and checked it out yesterday. It's a nice place. There's 4 bedrooms, so there's plenty of room for Harry." "And the wolf?" Black crossed his arms across his chest and glared at Severus. "Won't be there if Harry doesn't want him there at first," he said stubbornly. "I already talked to Moony about it, he understands." "Touching," Severus sneered, though the logical part of his mind, the part that was not worried he was about to lose his ward, could admit that it was considerate of Black to choose Potter's comfort over shacking up with his lover. "Potter hardly knows you," he pointed out instead. "How well does he know you?" Black challenged him. "There are no secrets between us," Severus said proudly. "Potter knows all there is to know about me." Black seemed momentarily surprised by his confident answer before he slumped into a more relaxed pose. "Listen, I know you've been good for him," he said, "and I know Harry trusts you more than anyone, but it was supposed to be me, and I want to fix that. I want to be in his life, Snape." Severus cursed at Black's tone. Was this show of genuine emotions not proof that Black would be helpful to Potter? "No," he scolded himself. "Black is drawn in by the idea of Potter. He has no idea what raising him entails." "I am not preventing you from being in his life," Severus said. "I believe there is nothing stopping you from being his godfather." Black leaned closer to Severus, as if judging his worth as a guardian visually. Severus held himself still as he was being intently stared at. "I know Harry likes you, but I thought you'd be happy at a chance to pass him off," Black said slowly. "He talked about you a lot. You care about him, don't you?" Of course I care about him, Severus scoffed. Did you mistakenly believe I was forced into accepting guardianship? Potter requested me and I accepted. I could be good for Harry, Black said as he straightened himself back up, though dropping the defensive stance he had previously held. I think we're a lot alike. The Black madness, it is rather hereditary. I am certain you are, Severus agreed, though Potter trusts me, and it was trust hard-earned and easily lost. I will not throw it away by making him believe I am willing to sign him over like a used broomstick. What if he wants to live with me? Black asked again. What then? Then I will respect his wishes, Severus said as casually as he could, despite the cold sliver of fear that became lodged in his chest. Potter is 13, and more mature than most adults. He gave a pointed look at Black, and if he no longer wishes to reside with me, then I shall respect it. Yeah, Black said, you wouldn't be an arse to him about it, because I think no matter what Harry would still want you in his life. I have no need for coddling, Severus said coolly. I am aware of the relationship I have with Potter. All right, Black nodded his head slowly. Don't say anything about it to him just yet, please. I want to talk to him about it myself. Severus jerked his chin in a semblance of a nod. Thanks, Snape, Black said cordially, and I meant what I said. I think you've done a good job with Harry. Merlin knows the kid isn't easy, is he? You said what you came to say, go, Severus said. Black bobbed his head in Severus' direction and quickly left, probably to go find the wolf. Severus hardly made it to his quarters before the exhaustion sunk into his body, and he slumped down on his sofa. Severus summoned himself a drink, and stared into the fireplace as he contemplated the likelihood of Potter choosing to reside with Black over himself. The more he drank, the more likely it became, and the more likely it became, the more he drank. It was a vicious cycle that ended with Severus passing out on his sofa and waking up with a hollow ache in his chest and a crick in his neck. Dearest Severus, I would be delighted to help you in any way for my dearest Meraviglia. Let me know rapidement the medication you will be needing for my beloved, and I will send my assistant out to acquire it. Much love, my dearest. Juliana Sabini. Potter, are you even paying attention? Severus' call in potions class caused Potter to snap his head up from the notepad he had been frantically scribbling in and gave him a wide-eyed look. Course I am, sir, he said, writing down what you said, aren't I? Severus huffed as Potter's tone bordered the line of disrespect in front of his class and returned to his lecture. He reminded himself that Potter was hardly the only student behaving distractedly. It happened every February. As the 14th approached and the students got older, they got more and more distracted from their studies in favor of insipidly giggling in the halls and blushing at their classmates. They were a week away from the busiest Hogsmeade weekend of the year, and Potter, along with all of his classmates, had become increasingly more excitable as of late. After he dismissed his class, he watched as Potter sprang up and bounced out into the hall, talking animatedly with Ronald and Theodore. Severus made an honest attempt at ignoring the fact that he likely only had 1 week left until Black approached Potter about the guardianship, and he lost his ward altogether. As a suitable distraction, Severus threw himself into his research project. They had discovered a way to combine the transfigurational potions base with the medicinal one, making it adaptive to the venom without compromising a muggle's ability to consume it, and were now working on a spell to instruct the venom to target only the cancerous cells within a body. The difficult part of this stage in the research was discovering ways to test the charms. Under no circumstances would Severus attempt to test it on a human, which left him to scavenge the castle for mice. He thought he had gotten it right one evening, after spelling the disease sample Ramsay sent him into the mouse, then injecting the potion, and was dismayed to see the mouse had passed quietly that night. God damn it, he swore upon seeing the mouse's still body. He was too tired, and swamped with papers that needed gradding, to attempt another mixture tonight, but as the students were all in bed, it would be the ideal time to go find another couple of mice to test his next free afternoon. Severus quietly left the to-go search near the kitchen for stray mice, as they seemed to favor the warm corridor in the colder months. He had nearly caught one when he was interrupted by Argus Filch jumping out at him. Aha, he cried, shoving a lantern in Severus' face. What is this meaning of this? Severus hissed in frustration, both by the mouse he had painstakingly stalked scurrying away, and from having a lantern shoved unceremoniously in his face. Oh, Professor Snape, sorry, the man said quickly. Thought you were a student out of bed. And why would you think that? Severus asked as he kept a close eye on the corridor in case Any additional mice stuck a single whisker out of the cracks they enjoyed hiding in. "Mrs. Norris heard someone up in the owlery," Filch said in his oily voice. "I guess that was you then." "It was not," Severus said. The owlery would in fact be the last place he would search for mice, as the owls typically snatched them as meals once they roamed too closely to their home. He sighed as he acknowledged his own duty, "though I will go investigate." "Very good, sir," Filch gave him some sort of twitchy half-bow. Severus truly had no idea how the man had decided they were on friendly terms, especially as he had threatened Severus, Ward, last year, but the respect was appreciated nonetheless. Severus quietly made his way to the owlery, cursing himself for even leaving his quarters this evening. As he walked swiftly, he decided that whichever students had the misfortune to find themselves out of bed at this hour would simply have to bear the brunt of his displeasure. He could hear the ridiculous student talking clear from the bottom of the staircase. They were hardly even attempting to keep their presence a secret. He threw the door open, "And what do you think you are, Potter?" Potter stood beside the open window and jumped at his entrance. "What are you doing here?" Potter said as he hid something behind his back quickly. "Harry, it is nearly midnight. What are you doing out of your dorm this late?" Potter didn't appear to be in distress. He was rather bright-eyed and relaxed despite his flickering eyes, and the way he continued to angle his body away from Severus as he stepped closer to the child. "Couldn't sleep, so thought I'd come check on Sevi," Potter said evasively. "And what is behind your back?" "Nothing," Potter lied as he shifted himself further away from Severus. "Were you trying to find more mice? 'Cause I can help you tomorrow if you want." Severus ignored Potter's blatant attempt at changing the subject and stared down at him instead. "What is behind your back?" he said slowly. "I swear I don't have anything," Potter insisted. "Can we just forget it? Let's go find some mice, yeah." Severus hated to do this, truly he did, but he made a quick motion towards Potter. Potter, predictably, tripped backwards as he flinched away from Severus and stuck his arms out to catch himself. "What the fuck have you done?" Severus said, horrified as he saw the arm Potter had attempted to hide from him. His entire right arm looked to be covered in feathers. Not covered, but as if the feathers were growing out of his skin in some form of a grotesque transfiguration. "You're gonna be mad," Potter said as he rightened himself and had the audacity to smile up at him. "Inform me at once what has happened here." "I'm trying to be an owl," Potter said baldly. Severus blinked at him until the words registered in his mind. "You are trying to be an owl," he said. "Yep," Potter grinned again. "It's a brilliant idea I had last night." Severus looked down again at Potter's arm and shuddered at the amount of work it would likely take to undo that amount of botched transfiguration. "Explain it to me as I escort you to my office," Severus said. "Okay, listen." Potter bounced alongside Severus as he talked, and Severus listened. "I want to be an animagus, but I don't want to take any chances on what my form is. So I was laying in bed last night thinking about it, and I figured that transfiguring myself into an owl is a much better idea than gambling on being an owl through my animagus form, right? So I was trying to imagine Sevi's feathers, and I couldn't get it right, so I went up to the owlery and hey, what's wrong?" Severus had stopped mid-stride in the corridor once he realized what was happening. This was the "I'm transfiguring my eyes 50 feet in the air, with no supervision" manic episode all over again. "Son of a bitch. When is the last time you slept?" he asked Potter as he attempted to casually walk alongside him again. "Few days," Potter waved his feathered hand, "but I thought you wanted to hear about becoming an owl. You understand, of course, that you would never be able to transform yourself into an actual owl, yes?" "No," Potter said, drawling the word out slowly, "because I had a plan, and it's a good plan if you just listen." "Continue." "So anyway, I needed to go to the owlery and find Sevi, and I kept thinking be an owl, but nothing worked, you know, so I thought maybe it would be easier if I did it a part at a time. So I was working on the wings, which is what this is." Potter waved his arm around again and laughed, "but it just made feathers and didn't change the shape of my arm yet." Severus listened half-heartedly as Potter rapidly spoke about his incredibly dangerous attempts at human transfiguration while they walked. "Did you have no concern for being caught out of bed after hours?" Severus cut in at one point as the child was horrifyingly describing his attempt at creating claws from his feet. "I had my cloak," Potter said with a careless shrug, "and I was real quiet when Filch came up, so no, guess I wasn't real concerned." Severus wanted to either bash Potter's head in the wall or his own. "Come in and let me attempt to fix this mess," Severus said as they approached his office. Fix it, Potter cried as he followed him in. Do you know how long it took me to do this? You can't take it back now. Did you even hear my plan? I did, Severus said evenly as he pulled out the required potions and prayed that they were enough. And I cannot allow you to have a partially transfigured arm. Harry, you are a person, not an owl. But I could be. Potter's eyes were disturbingly bright as he carried on. We're magic, sir. We can do anything we want. You're curing cancer. Broomsticks can fly. Black turns into a dog. Why shouldn't I turn into an owl? Because it is not possible, Severus said harshly as he slammed the potions onto his desk. It is not possible, and it is insanity to even try. It's not insanity, Potter laughed. You're just jealous. You're jealous because I'm gonna figure it out and you didn't even think about it. Catch! Severus threw an empty vial towards Potter, who reached for it instinctively with his right hand and stared, as the vial slipped through his feather-covered hand. That won't matter because once I'm an owl it'll be easy to turn back human, and then I can switch whenever I want, Potter said confidently. And if you are unable to figure it out before your next Quidditch match? Severus asked. Potter hesitated and held his hand out in front of him. I don't think I can catch the snitch like this, he chuckled nervously. Maybe I should have started with the left arm, do you think? I do not. Severus offered him the first of 3 potions, and felt no small amount of relief as Potter toasted it to him before downing it quickly. That's disgusting, Potter said cheerfully. What was it? A transfiguration reversal potion of my own creation, Severus murmured as he watched Potter's arm. Thankfully, the feathers began falling out almost immediately. Fuck, that hurts, don't it? Good, Severus muttered as he handed Potter the next potion. Perhaps you will think twice before attempting this again. Don't be mad, okay, but after our last match I'm definitely trying again, Potter said before downing the anti-inflammatory. I know I'm right, Snape, I can feel it. I did a ton of research, well I tried anyway, but there's really no research on it, so I'm keeping notes so I can create research for other people to follow. Brilliant, right? Potter smiled broadly at him, and Severus prayed to Merlin that his next maneuver would be successful. What research notes are you making? He asked casually as he handed Potter the 3rd potion he had pulled from his cabinet. Potter threw the potion back and began rambling again. Well, first I wrote down why I had the idea and where it came from, so people know, you know. Then I started writing down my ideas for how it would. Severus moved swiftly to catch Potter before he struck his head on the stone floor as the child fell over in a dead sleep. He cast a feather-light charm on the child, the irony not being lost on him, and carried him to his quarters after pocketing the extra-strength dreamless sleep vial that Potter dropped as he passed out. He deposited Potter on the sofa and summoned a blanket. He plucked his glasses off his face and stood there watching him sleep for a few moments. Foolish brat, Severus said softly as he smoothed Potter's tangled locks of hair off his face. He pulled his recliner closer to the sofa and set a ward to alert him when Potter awoke, before summoning his parchment and quill. La folie circulaire. Circular madness. It seemed as if Potter had worked himself back around to a manic cycle in his madness. Severus could only hope it ended quicker than his most recent depressive episode did. Contessa Giuliana Zabini. I have dove quite deep into the research available on the medication for Harry's illness, and I believe the most effective treatment the French have found at this time is called lithium. If you were able to procure a supply of this, preferably in 500 milligram dosages, I would be eternally grateful and can of course repay you any cost it may incur. Kindly, Severus T. Snape. Chapter 23, Valentine's Day PT. Harry reached blearily around for Luna as he stretched in his bed, before bolting upright as he realized the scratchy fabric beneath him wasn't his bed. Jesus fuck, he yelped as he saw Snape seated beside him. What's going on? Harry looked around quickly and saw that the two of them were alone in Snape's sitting room in his personal quarters. How'd I get here? You fell asleep and I moved you to my sofa, as it was undeniably closer than your dorm, Snape said calmly, ignoring Harry's language. What do you recall of last night? Harry trailed off while he tried to remember. I'm not sure, think I went for a walk, yeah. Of a sort, Snape said. You injured your arm when you attempted to transfigure yourself into an owl. Oh yeah, Harry grabbed his glasses that Snape held out to him and grinned as he put them on. Did I tell you my ideas already? You did. What d'you think? Harry asked excitedly. Did I show you my research? He looked around and frowned when he realized he didn't have his bag with him. Where's my stuff? In the classroom where you left them before falling over unconscious, Snape said. What? Harry screwed his face up as he tried to remember what happened last night. That doesn't make any sense. You said you had not slept in a few days, so I gave you an extra strength dreamless sleep. What? Harry scooted a little further away from Snape as he looked around again. Why would you do that? You can't just drug people if they don't want to be drugged. I'm sure it's against the law or something in it. It would be, Snape agreed as he casually crossed his legs and tapped one finger on the armrest of his chair. Except you did not ask me what I gave you, and instead impulsively just swallowed it. Excuse me for trusting you, Harry scowled. Thought it was something for the feathers, did I? I apologize if you feel if I deceived you. However, Snape cleared his throat and fixed Harry with a piercing look. I would like to discuss something of a rather high importance with you, if you would like to stay for breakfast. All right then, Harry agreed as he jumped to his feet. We move into the table. If you would like, Snape said as he slowly followed behind Harry. Are you not angry? Harry stopped as he went to sit down. Angry, he repeated. Why? Snape sat down gracefully, as compared to how Harry threw himself in his chair, and gave Harry a peculiar look. You do not feel as if you were trekked. Nah, Harry waved his hand. It's fine, I should have asked right. Perhaps, Snape agreed without really agreeing. What would you like to eat? Just coffee, Harry said as he looked around Snape's dining room. Lots of sugar. Well, you know how I like my coffee, he laughed. Probably better than anyone, yeah, except maybe me, and probably not Mavis either. And to eat? Nothing, I'm not hungry, am I? You should eat, Harry. You will get sick if you attempt to live off only coffee. Harry looked over at Snape at his soft tone, and gave him a curious look. I feel fine, great actually. Which was true, Harry hadn't felt this good in ages. It was like the first night when he was dueling all over again. He just felt excited and alive and energetic. Euphoric and hyperactive, Snape asked after requesting one of the Hogwarts elves bring them coffee, toast, and fruit. Harry was pretty sure that euphoric meant the same thing as happy. Yes, he agreed eagerly, exactly. That is because you are having a manic episode, Snape said grimly. No, Harry shook his head, I'm not a maniac. Manic, not maniac, Snape corrected him gently as breakfast popped up on his table. We discussed it over the summer. That mind illness again, Harry asked. I told you I don't have that, why can't I just be in a good mood, huh? Is this because of feathers? Cause you can't even pretend that wasn't a great idea, or is? This, Snape said sharply, all of this is mania, Harry. You are not sleeping or eating, you are rambling and distracted. You are behaving erratically, impulsively, though it is not your fault, it is the illness. Can you not identify that you feel differently than you usually do? I'm happy, Harry defended himself. That a crime now. I'm not impulsive or ramblin', I'm just happy. Your speech is also markedly worse. Fuck off, Harry pronounced very slowly. My speech is fine. Harry, Snape sighed instead of scolding him. I do not wish to fight with you. I need you to recognize that you have a legitimate illness so that we can treat it. Snape, please, Harry caught Snape's gaze with his own and tried to push his thoughts as hard as he could in his direction. I'm happy, I feel fine. I'm really not sick. I know that Muggle told you I was, but honestly, I'm not. Snape didn't answer as he poured 2 cups of coffee, but Harry knew him too well to think that meant that he agreed with him. He slid Harry a cup of coffee, which Harry immediately dumped a bunch of sugar in, and sat back and watched Harry thoughtfully. Do you recall your energetic excitement over the summer as you attempted to transfigure your eyes into ones that can see in the dark? Yup, I didn't give up on that either. I'm just gonna try and get the owl parts first, then I can add the eyes and I figure. Harry, Snape interrupted him firmly. Did you not recognize that it was a foolish idea to attempt such a task? Harry slammed his mug down on the table and got to his feet huffily. I don't have to sit here and listen to you insult me, Harry said. I'm gonna go. Got classes soon, don't I? Snape stayed silent as Harry stomped out of his quarters, steaming over the stuff Snape accused him of. Why didn't he see what Harry saw? He didn't get it. Snape was the one who was always after him, that he wants him to be happy, have an easy life, blah blah blah. And now he's accusing Harry of being sick because he is happy. Snape was the one who was mad, not Harry. Maybe Snape had a mind sickness. Manic episode, Harry scoffed as he snatched his bag from the floor of the potions classroom. Snape was a maniac. Harry was happy. For the first time in forever, he thought Snape of all people would be happy for him, but apparently not. Which was fine, he didn't really need him anyway. Snape would see he was wrong and would beg Harry for forgiveness, and Harry would probably forgive him, but he'd have to prove he was really sorry first. Midway through the week, Harry watched interestedly as Sevy flew in the hall one morning and swooped down to his table, a small parchment attached to his leg. "Hey buddy," Harry stroked Sevy's back as the owl hooted and tried to peck the bacon out of Susan's hand. "Whatcha got here?" "Harry, control your owl," Susan scowled as Sevy successfully snatched the food right off her plate. "Good job, Sevy," Harry laughed as he unrolled the parchment, which looked to be an excerpt from a textbook of some sort. Manic depressive illness is an illness classified by alternating periods of extreme emotional highs, mania, and emotional lows, depression. Manic episodes are experienced by intense feelings of euphoria, high energy, decreased need for sleep, increased impulsive behavior, a sense of invincibility, and nonsensical thought patterns. Depressive episodes can be identified by intense feelings of sadness or hopelessness. Clients suffering from a depressive episode may feel a lack of interest in life and may even experience suicidal thoughts. Manic depressive illness can be treated through daily medication to balance the chemicals in the patient's brain, and symptoms can be mitigated through professional therapy. At the end of the page, there was a scrawl added. "Please eat, brat, SS." Harry looked up at the head table and scowled at Snape's look of concern he was aiming at him. "What's that?" Ron asked. "Nothing," Harry murmured as he instructed his magic to burn the page up while glaring at Snape. Snape being an idiot. "I don't think so," Luna hummed softly. "Why Snape being an idiot?" Susan asked. "Or how I guess?" Harry shrugged, unwilling to tell his friends what Snape said. "Just is," he said evasively. "Did you guys finish your assignment for Flitwick?" Neville asked. Harry gave him a grateful nod and jumped into the topic of the musical charms Flitwick had them researching. Harry also made a point of turning his back to Snape throughout the rest of breakfast. Friday morning, it was the same routine. Sevy flew in with a scroll he dropped in front of Harry before landing on Luna's head. "Traitor," Harry gasped, "you've left me for Lou." "Don't yell at Sevy just because he has good taste," Luna said in a posh tone as she reached up and stroked Sevy's feathers. "Blondes are better than brunettes, aren't they, baby?" Sevy pecked her and took off, apparently offended as he himself had black feathers. "He'll figure it out," she said confidently with a small grin. "Another note from Snape?" Draco asked as Harry unrolled the scroll. "Yep," Harry sighed as he read through what seemed to be research about people with manic depressive illness and the rarity of it, and how it was treated with medication. The bottom had another note telling him to eat. "Trash," he laughed as he burnt this one up as well. He figured Snape would see for himself that he was wrong eventually, and until then Harry would just continue to ignore his weird notes. He'd also been ignoring him in class and dodging him in the corridors when he tried to stop him for a chat. "He's not going to be happy if you keep burning up his letters," Theo said with a glance towards the head table. "He looks sad," Hermione said quietly. "He'll get over it," Harry said. "Hey Draco, what are you doing Sunday?" "Sleeping," Draco said shortly. "You aren't waking me up in the middle of the night for another crazy idea ever again." "It was not a crazy idea," Harry laughed. "Next time I'll just take Lou." "What crazy plan?" Blaise asked. Draco cut Harry off before he could explain for himself. "Harry woke me up at 3 in the morning last night to go see if we could transfigure gills on ourselves to swim underwater." Hermione and Theo turned identically wide brown eyes towards him. "What? It didn't work, but I think I'm close," Harry said eagerly. "Think about how cool it would be if we could swim down to the bottom of the lake and see the mermaids." "Tell me you didn't try it, Harry," Hermione said slowly. "Course I did, just said I think I'm close, didn't I?" "You went to the Black Lake in the middle of the night by yourself and tried to give yourself gills to swim underwater," Susan hissed. "Yup. You could have drowned," Neville said. "Not to mention freezing to death in the water. It's February, Harry. There's snow on the ground." Harry laughed at the looks on his friends' faces. Everyone except Luna looked shocked. "Did you guys forget we're literally magic?" Harry wiggled his fingers at them. "Used to heating charm, didn't I?" "Harry, you're mad," Ron said slowly. "When's the last time you even slept? Because night before last you were awake at 4 when I went to the loo." Don't call him mad, Luna said sharply. You just don't understand him. Harry was suddenly, and uncomfortably, reminded of something similar Sissa said about Black. I hear a lot of people say that Sirius was mad. I don't remember him being mad. I remember him being terribly haunted, a horrible bully, and one of the most tragically misunderstood people I had ever met at that point in my life. Harry. Harry jerked himself upright and shook his head to clear the reminder of Sissa from his thoughts. He looked over at Ron, who was calling his name. Yeah. Sorry, mate, I didn't mean you were mad. Just I think you should ask Snape for something to sleep. I don't think you've slept much lately, he said hesitantly. A lack of sleep can impact your mental functions, Hermione said. Harry's not stupid, Draco scowled at her. She didn't say he was, Theo said with a scowl of his own. She was just saying. Shut you p, Harry yelled. His friends all jumped at Harry's shout and exchanged guilty looks. Ron, fine, I sleep just fine, he lied. Myoni, fine. Draco, what are you doing Sunday? What do you want? Draco asked carefully. Harry sighed at his cynicism. Honestly, he thought Draco would have been excited for a chance to interact with the creatures in the lake. He knew he should have woke Luna up instead. I was gonna see if you wanted to teach me how to be a chaser, Harry said. Flint's leavin' this year, right? And so are Pusey, Bletchley and Warrington, so gonna apply to be captain. Figured I should know more than one position, like how Flint can be a chaser or beater or keeper. So then the best pick. Harry smiled broadly at his own thought process. Bloody hell, Ron said with an impressed look. That's brilliant, Harry. I know, he said smugly. You should come too. We'll need a keeper, a chaser and 2 beaters next year. You think, Ron said, his eyes lighting up at the idea. I play keeper for the twins in the summer sometimes. I'm not bad. Yes, Harry bounced eagerly in his seat. Perfect. So Draco, will you help me? Please, pretty please. Draco rolled his eyes, but Harry could tell he was going to agree. If you promise to never wake me up at 3 am to go swimming in the middle of the winter, then I will. During the day, he tacked on sharply. Deal. Harry wouldn't ask Draco to go to the lake again anyway. He was a prat when he woke him up last night. When Harry got to meet mermaids and other sea creatures, he'd be jealous though. Hey, Harry. Harry and the other Slytherin boys slowed to a stop on their way to defense, as Fred Weasley waved Harry down in the crowded corridor. Hey Harry, Fred grinned at him and Harry fought down an overwhelming urge to blush. Can I talk to you, in private? Harry shrugged. I'll catch up to you guys, he said to his friends. Fred walked off to a more private alcove in the corridor and Harry followed curiously. What's up? Harry asked. Fred shifted from side to side in what Harry thought was probably a nervous gesture. I don't want to be a creep, he said. I just wanted to ask one more time if you wanted to go to Hogsmeade with me tomorrow. If not, I'll leave you alone, but if so, I swear I'm. Sure. Fred cut himself off at Harry's interruption, and he looked down at him with surprised blue eyes. Really? He grinned. Yes, why not? Fred let out a loud whoop of laughter that drew more than a few curious sets of eyes pointed their way. Wicked, I can meet you in the hall tomorrow at noon. Harry agreed. You won't regret this, Potter, Fred called as he ran off towards his next class. Harry grinned to himself as he jogged towards his next class. He hadn't planned on accepting Fred's offer, but he figured what could it hurt. He crept quietly to his seat once he got to Lupin's classroom, ignoring the disapproving frown Lupin aimed at his late arrival, and plopped down next to Susan. After a few minutes of Lupin's lecture on the new creature they were studying, Kappas, Susan slid him her notepad. You say yes? Yep. Susan grinned and gave him a thumbs up. Why'd you change your mind? Harry shrugged. Dunno, thought it might be fun. Impulsive, she wrote with a giggle. Harry scowled at the notepad when he read it. You are behaving erratically, impulsively. It isn't your fault, it is the illness. Was not, he wrote firmly. Fred asked 3 times yeah. Susan raised her brows at the fierce way he scrawled across the page. You're right, sorry, excited. Harry grinned and shrugged again. Be different, I suppose. I think I'm going with Draco. Harry sputtered loudly when he read that, drawing Lupin's attention. I know Kappas are incredibly amusing, Harry, but I'd appreciate you and Susan paying attention. Yes, sir, Harry said as he lowered his face back down to their note. Date with Draco. Susan blushed and tucked her hair behind her ear. Not a date, just friends, but neither of us had an actual date, so we're going together. Oh, okay. Can I tell Ron you're going on a date with his brother? Harry covered his mouth to stifle his laughter at Susan's new note. He nodded at her and watched as she grinned mischievously and scribbled a new note that she lobbed at Ron's head in front of her. Ron frowned at the two of them as he grabbed the note off the floor. Bloody hell. Ron Weasley, Lupin walked quickly back to his table at Ron's shout, 5 points from Slytherin. But Ron spun around in his seat and gaped at Harry. What? Susan started cracking up with laughter, which triggered Harry's own repressed laughter. Lupin's lips twitched just a bit, but he mostly maintained his unimpressed frown as he snagged the note from Ron's hand. Congratulations, Harry, Lupin said lightly as he read the note. Can we return to Kappa's, or should we discuss Fred Weasley instead? The rest of the class spun around and looked at Harry. Harry just shrugged. Either or is fine with me, sir, he said a bit cheekily. Lupin sighed, but walked back up to the front and drew most of the students' attention with him. How could you? Ron moaned quietly. I trusted you. Piss off, Draco whispered to him. Harry can date who he wants. But my brother. There are plenty of them to choose from, Theo said with a teasing sparkle in his eyes. Maybe he'll move on to Percy next. All 5 boys shuddered dramatically at the thought of going out with Ron's straight-laced, head boy, boring brother. I think Percy's cute, Susan said. Maybe I'll go out with him. Ron thunked his head on the table, and Harry ducked beneath his own table to hide his laughter from Lupin. You are not wearing that on a date. Harry looked behind himself on Saturday afternoon at Draco, who was glaring at him with his hands on his hips. You look like your mum right now, Harry snickered as he went back to trying to artfully style, as Blaise called it, his hair. And she would kill us both if I allowed you to go out in that, Draco said. What's wrong with my clothes? Harry looked down at his newest dark green Weasley sweater with a big H on the front and his trousers. This is what I always wear. Precisely, Draco said as he started digging in his own trunk. You always wear it. Harry glanced at Theo and Blaise, who were nodding along with Draco. You can't wear that on a date, Theo said. You have to dress up at least a little. You aren't, Harry muttered. Am too, Theo said. He stood up and held his arms out as he spun in a slow circle. Why can't I wear that then? Harry cried, gesturing to Theo's jeans and collared jumper. That looks normal to me. Draco, who had an armful of what looked like silk, scowled at Theo and threw the clothes back in his trunk. Fine, he dug around for another moment before pulling out a pair of nice jeans and a dark green jumper. Here, hold on. He pulled out a grey collared shirt and thrust it in Harry's hands as well. Put this on under the jumper. Cheers, Harry grinned and ran quickly to the restroom where he hopped around as he quickly changed. He shrunk Draco's clothes until they fit his thinner frame a bit better and went back out with his arms stretched out. Better. You'll do, Draco huffed as he pulled on a posh pair of dark blue robes. Dashing, my dearest, Blaise said as he laced up his boots. Have you got a date too then? Harry asked him as he caught his boots that Theo tossed to him. Sure do, Blaise smiled sharply. The darling Miss Bridget Lacey was feeling rather left out this holiday, and I graciously offered to join her. The 4th-year Hufflepuff girl, Ron asked as he flipped over to his back on his bed. That's the one. Ron snickered for some reason. What's so funny? Harry asked curiously. Well, it's no mystery why Blaise asked her. She's dead gorgeous, is she? Blaise stuck his nose in the air pompously. I like her personality. Of course, Theo said as he snickered alongside Ron. We believe you. At least I have a date, Blaise said with a pointed look towards Ron. In fact, I think you're the only one in the room without a date. I don't need a date, Ron scowled. Me and Neville are going with a group of other people who are protesting this stupid holiday. Neville and I, Blaise corrected him annoyingly. I'm leaving, Harry called, interrupting the bickering that was beginning to break out between Blaise and Ron. Good luck, Draco yelled. Tell Weasley I'll kill him if he's mean to you. Harry would kill him himself, Theo laughed. Harry pulled the dorm door shut behind him as the boys started a bet on how his date would go. He really truly believed that Ron and Blaise could make any event into a betting pool. As Harry skidded to a stop in the entrance hall, he finally realized just how many students must be taking Valentine's Day seriously. The hall was crowded with students 3rd year and above, all dressed up more than usual, standing around waiting on their dates from other houses to arrive. Harry remained on the stairs, wishing he had thought to grab his map so he could look for Fred's dot, and figured that at least the stairs would give him a height advantage to look for the tall red-headed Gryffindor boy. "Boo!" someone whispered in his ear. "Jesus fuck!" Harry screeched, jumping and turning around quickly, pocket knife already in hand and brandished in front of him. "Whoa!" Fred took a couple steps back and put his hands up with an easy smile. "I forgot I probably shouldn't surprise the guy who carries a knife." Harry put his knife back in his pocket and smirked up at Fred. "Probably a bad idea," he agreed. You're sure you want me to go with you? This isn't some weird prank." Neville had told him that Fred and George were huge pranksters, and even had dreams of opening their own joke shop after they graduated. Harry had been up all night last night worrying that maybe this was a joke, and he was going to look stupid if he fell for it. "It wouldn't be a very funny prank to ask you to go with me if I didn't want you to," Fred said. "Pranks are supposed to be either funny or payback of some sort." "Payback?" Harry asked eagerly. "What kind of pranks do you use for payback?" "I'm glad you asked," Fred grinned. "Come on, I'll tell you all about it while we walk." Harry followed closely behind Fred as he dodged between other students and ducked out the main doors. "Bit chilly in it," Fred grinned as he shoved his hands in his pockets and set off slowly down the pathway. Harry rolled his eyes. "Warm us up," he instructed his magic. "Wicked," Fred cried when the spell hit him. "How do you do that?" "Do what?" Fred waved his hands around. "Wandless magic. It's supposed to be really hard. My brother Bill is a genius, and he still has to use his wand for almost everything." "Practice," Harry smirked. "Spent my whole life practicing, did I?" "You're a genius," Fred said happily. "I know," Harry agreed. "Let's hear about those pranks then." "All right," Fred smiled and inched close to Harry as he told him stories about pranks him and his brother have played on people who irritated them. By the time they arrived in the village, Harry had laughed so hard at some of Fred's past pranks that he had tears in his eyes. "You're brilliant," Harry said. "I'd give anything to make a potion that turns someone into a bird." "Mark my words, Harry, canary creams will be the next big hit," Fred said confidently. "Where do you want to go first?" Harry, who usually just ran around random places with his friends, shrugged. "Where do you want to go?" he asked instead. "Did you know the Shrieking Shack is haunted?" Fred said with a mischievous twinkle in his eyes. "And there's a secret passageway that leads back to Hogwarts in it." "It's not haunted," Harry laughed. "There used to be a werewolf that spent the full moon in there. Can I see the passageway? I saw it on the map, but I haven't checked it out yet, have I?" "I'll show you the passageway if you tell me how you found out about a werewolf," Fred said as he slowly put a hand on Harry's shoulder and turned him towards the shack. "'Kay, so listen, hear what Snape said." Harry talked about Snape's story of Lupin, while keeping Lupin's name out of it, as they walked together towards the shack. "Snape would be a wicked guardian," Fred said. "I bet he has loads of cool stories." "He does," Harry confirmed. "How do we get in?" "Watch closely," Fred winked before climbing over the fence and walking right up to the building. "That's cool," Harry said as he quickly climbed the fence and caught up. "But my invisibility cloak's way cooler." "You have an invisibility cloak," Fred cried as he quickly held the shack door open for Harry. "And you aren't even using it for pranks. Harry, I have so much to teach you." Harry laughed as he ducked beneath Fred's arm into the shack. "Let's see this secret passageway," he smirked over his shoulder at him. "Yes, sir," Fred laughed. The two of them explored the abandoned shack for a while after Fred showed him the passageway. "It's blocked by the Whomping Willow, though," he explained when Harry asked if they could go through it. After they were done looking for interesting things in the shack, they walked back towards the village where they spent a couple hours in Zonko's. Fred showed Harry all the different products he used, and they were each greeted multiple times by their own various friends as they browsed the shelves. In the end, they each bought a bag full of prank items, and Harry promised to use at least one of his items on Ron at some point. "Fancy a drink?" Fred asked after they left the store, and Harry shrunk their bags to pocket sizes. "Yeah, all right." Fred lightly let the back of his hand brush against the back of Harry's as they walked. Harry initially pulled his hand away from the contact, but then slowly put it back. Fred looked over at him and smiled a bit shyly in a way that made Harry's cheeks warm up despite the cold wind. "After you." Fred held the door open for Harry with a deep bow that made Harry laugh. "Thank you, sir," he said with his best attempt at a deep posh tone. "Where do you want to sit?" Fred asked politely. Harry looked around and grinned as he saw Black sitting at the bar top. He hadn't noticed Harry walk in, as he looked to be deeply involved in a conversation with Madame Rosmeter that involved a lot of winks and wide hand gestures. "Do you remember that map you gave me?" Harry asked Fred quietly. "You mean the map you definitely tricked us into giving you?" "Yes," Fred grinned in a way that made Harry think he was probably just joking, since Harry definitely hadn't tricked them. "Wanna meet one of the guys who made it?" "What?" Fred stared at Harry in shock before bobbing his head enthusiastically. "You mean to tell me that you can do wandless magic, you have an invisibility cloak, and you know one of the Marauders?" "Yup, come on." Harry hesitantly grabbed Fred's hand and looked up at him to make sure it was okay. Fred smiled brightly down at him, and Harry returned it as he pulled him along towards Black. "Harry," Black cried as the two boys approached him. "How are you?" "Good." Harry glanced at Fred and laughed to see the older boy look torn between looking afraid of Sirius Black, recently exonerated murderer, or curious if he was the mystery Marauder. "This is Fred. Fred, this is my godfather Sirius Black. His friends call him Padfoot though." "Holy Mother of Merlin." Fred stuck the hand that wasn't still wrapped up in Harry's out to Black. "I'm a huge fan of the map you made." "You're the one Harry got the map from?" Black asked as he shook Fred's hand quickly. "No wonder Minnie said you were a hooligan. You guys wanna sit, have a drink?" Fred turned hopeful blue eyes towards Harry, who rolled his eyes jokingly and claimed a seat 2 over from Black, allowing Fred to sit between them. "Who's Minnie?" Fred asked, which sent Black off on a story of Professor Minnie and her secret deep love for him that had Harry and Fred both laughing at his antics. Rosmeter brought them each a bottle of butter beer that Fred insisted on paying for. "This is a date," he whispered to Harry with a quick wink. Harry shrugged and bought the second round as he said the same thing to Fred. The three of them sat for a long while and exchanged stories and jokes as they snacked on some different foods Rosmeter brought them. "I have so much to learn," Fred laughed after Black told them a story involving Harry's dad and Black as they tried to befriend the giant squid. "As long as you graduate and feel like you've given Minnie as many grey hairs as possible, then it's mischief managed," Black said. Harry looked around the pub during the lull in their conversation and was startled to see it was starting to get dark. "I should probably get you back so we don't end up in detention," Fred said as he followed Harry's gaze to the darkening windows. "Hey Harry, can I actually talk to you real quick before you go?" Harry glanced at Fred, who shrugged at Black's question. "I'll just meet you over there, all right," he offered. "'Kay." Harry watched Fred walk off before turning to Black. "What's up?" Black took a deep breath. "I know Snape's your guardian, and I know you and him get along pretty well." Harry wrinkled his nose as he thought of Snape insisting Harry had some sort of disease. "But I wanted to tell you that I bought a house," Black continued hesitantly, "and if you wanted to live with me then you could." Harry blinked at him a few times as he processed his meaning. "Live with you instead of Snape?" he asked. "Yeah." Black scratched at the back of his neck nervously as Harry kept blinking at him. "You don't have to answer right now, but just think about it, okay?" Harry nodded cautiously as he stood up and inched towards the doorway where Fred was waiting. "All right," he agreed. "I'll think about it, yeah." "Thanks." Black smiled at him before looking towards Fred. "Fred seems like a decent guy. Are you glad you came out with him?" "Yeah." Harry grinned at the change in topic. He felt uneasy about Black's offer to move in. It felt even worse when he considered moving out of his and Snape's home. Even if Snape was being a git right now. Fred's brill, ain't he? "Seems like it," Black agreed. "You guys better hurry back though. I'll write to you and we can talk more about our place if you wanted to." "'Kay, I'll see you later," Harry said before quickly hurrying back over to Fred. "Everything all right?" Fred asked as they left the 3 broomsticks. "Yup." Harry shook his head, determined to focus on his time right now and leave the idea Black shared for future Harry to worry about. "This has been fun," he said as they walked up the path hand in hand. "I've never been on a date before," he admitted softly. "Thought I might bugger the whole thing up, did I?" Fred laughed and squeezed Harry's hand lightly. "Nah, unless you ran away screaming at some point, I don't think you could have," he said. "Still time to do that," Harry joked. Fred smiled over at him, and Harry thought Fred had a nice smile. He had great teeth, straight and white, but with one little crooked tooth that made his smile more interesting. "Are you busy tonight?" Fred asked him as they passed through the gates. Harry laughed as he thought of all the stuff he's been working on at night, while his dorm mates slept. "I can't try and turn myself into an owl until after we beat you for the cup," Harry explained. "So besides working on my gills, I'm mostly free. Why?" Fred looked confused when Harry mentioned his projects, which, to be fair, probably sounded confusing if you didn't understand the details. "Well, if your gills can wait, there's a party going on tonight. It's mostly just for older students, but I know a couple other third years that are coming. Do you want to come?" "All right," Harry bounced on his toes eagerly at the idea. "What should I wear, or bring, or do?" Fred laughed at his enthusiasm. "Wear what you have on, it's perfect." He grinned and Harry blushed. "And bring your map, see if you can find me. The password's jelly slugs." "Oh, I'll find you," Harry said confidently, as Fred held the castle doors open for him. "That map's brilliant in it." "You're brilliant," Fred said softly. "See you tonight." And with a last squeeze to Harry's hand they parted ways, before entering the great hall to go sit at their respective tables. Harry smiled to himself, thought this might have been the best day of his life, and hopefully tonight would be just as great. "Where are you going?" Harry jumped and turned a guilty face towards the sofa in the common room where Blaise was seated. "Hello there," he said casually. "Nice night, innit?" Blaise snorted and got up to lean against the couch closer to Harry. "Where are you off to?" he asked again. Harry glanced around the common room to make sure there weren't any other students lurking around before leaning close to Blaise. "Party Fred invited me to," he whispered. "Wanna come?" "Party with older students?" Blaise asked. "Yups," Harry confirmed. "I'm in." Blaise brushed off some imaginary dirt from his robes. "Are we using your cloak?" "And my map," Harry confirmed. "Fred told me to come find him, so I'm gonna." Blaise chuckled quietly as Harry threw his cloak around them both and pulled his map out. "I solemnly swear I'm up to no good," he murmured with a quick tap to the parchment. "There he is." Blaise pointed at the dot labeled Fred Weasley that was stacked with a bunch of other dots on the third floor. "Let's go," Harry whispered as they quietly left the common room. Harry and Blaise carefully followed the map to an unused classroom on the third floor. They'd had to take one detour to avoid the dot labeled Phileas Flitwick, but otherwise arrived with no issues. "This is mad," Blaise muttered beneath the cloak. "What were we thinking?" "We were thinking this was gonna be fun," Harry grinned. "If you want to back out though, last chance." "No way," Blaise said stubbornly. "If you get to party with fifth years, then so do I." "Good man," Harry said with a cheery clap of Blaise's shoulder before yanking the cloak off them. "Let's do it." Harry knocked on the door and whispered the password Fred told him. The door swung open and Harry's jaw dropped at the sheer amount of students and noise that were previously concealed behind the door. There were at least 30 students dancing, laughing, and singing along to a song Harry didn't recognize that had a loud bass beat. "I think it's more than just fifth years," Blaise murmured. Harry laughed in agreement and quickly shut the door behind them. "Harry, looking good," Fred called as he came running up to them. And I don't know your name," he said to Blaise. "Blaise Zabini," Blaise said as he looked around eagerly. "Not important though, enjoy your night, gentlemen." Harry laughed as Blaise sauntered off towards a group of giggling girls. "He's an incorrigible flirt," he said solemnly to Fred. "So are they," Fred jerked his thumb to the girls that Blaise was now chatting up. "Want a drink?" "All right then." Harry followed alongside Fred to a table set up with what looked like crates of butterbeer, snacks, a few bowls of punch, and a bunch of bottles that Harry recognized as similar ones to the bottles in Snape's liquor cabinet. "Butterbeer or fire whiskey?" Fred asked. "Fire whiskey," Harry said immediately. Fred poured Harry a full glass, with a ridiculously outlandish flourish of his arms. "Come on then, I'll go introduce you," he said when he passed Harry his cup. Harry took a gulp of the drink as he followed Fred and sputtered at the strong taste. "Fuck," he gasped as heat enveloped his mouth and throat. "That's disgusting." "Gets better the more you have," Fred said as he threw the arm not holding his own drink around Harry's shoulders. Harry slowly flexed his hand while he debated on shrugging out from the other boy's arm. Fred kept his arm loose around Harry's shoulders, as if knowing that Harry wasn't entirely certain about it yet. It's nice, he eventually decided, as Fred guided him through the crowd. It wasn't as comfortable as Luna or Susan, but it wasn't as bad as when adults did it either. Harry, you know George, of course. Fred pulled him from his debate as they approached his group of friends. Feel free to call him the ugly twin, though. Harry laughed while George put on a fake pout. And Lee Jordan, a dark-skinned Gryffindor boy that does the Quidditch announcements, raised a glass in Harry's direction. Angelina, Katie, and Alicia, they're Gryffindor's chasers, of course. Harry nodded at the three girls, pretending he recognized them. And Dean Thomas, he's in your year. Finnegan's here somewhere too, and Roger Davies from Ravenclaw. Hey, Harry said uncertainly as they all stared at him. He speaks, one of the girls, maybe Alicia, cried dramatically. We were starting to think you only hissed or cursed. I do that too, Harry smirked. One of your many charms, Fred laughed. Come on, come sit. He pulled Harry over to the sofa where George was seated and shoved his brother unceremoniously to the floor. Shove up. I knew Master Snape would drive us apart, George said dramatically as he moved from the floor to another nearby chair. I'd challenge him to a duel for your honor. But we all know you'd lose, Harry laughed. I would have given anything to see you duel them, the Gryffindor girl with the long braids said with a grin. They were so cocky about it too. Did Snape teach you to duel then? Davies asked. Nah, Harry waved his free hand. Quirrell did. Quiet little Professor Quirrell? Jordan asked. No way. Quiet little Quirrell with Voldemort on the back of his head. He absolutely did. Harry laughed as everyone around them twitched at the name and stared at him in shock. Drink up, George said as he summoned a bottle of something. I sense a good story here. Harry shared drinks with the group of the other students, as he told them all about Quirrell and dueling, and the trapdoor and shooting lightning at his turban. You told you know who to fuck off? Fred asked when Harry finished his story. Yup. You're absolutely mad, George laughed. Marry him, Freddie. Harry would have scowled at George's declaration of him being mad, but at this point, he'd finished off his drink and thought the whole thing was quite funny. Potter's mad all right, someone snorted rudely. Harry glanced around and saw Finnegan had joined their group and was glaring at where Harry sat squished against Fred, who brought the Slytherin. Careful, Finnegan, Fred said as he threw his arm around Harry's shoulder. Don't make Harry here twitch at you. The rest of the older students howled with laughter at the reminder of Finnegan's boggart, though Thomas slid up beside his friend loyally. I'm not scared of Potter, that boggart was a lark, Finnegan sneered as his face turned red. You're sure, Harry said, cause you look scared, do ya? Piss off, Seamus, we're having a good time, the girl with the braids said from where she was lounging across George's lap. Hard to have a good time with someone like Potter around, isn't it? What's that supposed to mean? Fred demanded as he got to his feet. George lightly shoved the girl off his lap and got up to stand by his twin as well. Someone like Potter, huh? Dark evil, fucked up in the head, take your pick, Finnegan said right in Fred's face. Harry jumped to his feet at that, enjoying the odd little dizzy spell the liquor gave him. I dunno what your problem is, but we can sort it out if you want, Harry said with a small smile as he flicked his wand in his hand. Less you're as scared as you look. Finnegan pulled his wand out of his pocket and jammed it in Harry's direction, only being blocked from making contact by Fred and George. I could kick your ass any day, Potter, he said. You think you're tough cause you know a bit of magic, but everyone knows you're just the next evil wizard waiting to happen. Harry grinned at Finnegan and promptly drew his fist back and hit him square in the nose. Don't suppose I need magic to fight you, he said as Finnegan howled and clutched his nose. Have a good one. Harry turned back around and plopped back down on the sofa to jeers and laughter from the other students. You're terrifying, Fred laughed as he sat back down beside him. Have a good one, George said. Bloody hell. Finnegan gave them all dirty looks but stalked off towards the other end of the room, Thomas following behind. You boys aren't fighting over here, are you? A boy walked up with a lazy smile. He had long blonde braids, a ball cap pulled over on top of them, and hazy blue eyes. I am, Harry smirked. Of course you are, the boy laughed as she sat in the middle of the group on the floor. Harry Potter'll fight anyone, and whoever you don't fight, Susan will. The boy laughed again in a lazy sort of way that reminded Harry of Blaze's laughter. You in Hufflepuff then? Harry asked, eyeing the yellow crest on his robe pocket. Harry, this is Johnny. Johnny meet Harry, Fred said. Johnny's a 6th year in Hufflepuff. My sister Hannah's in your year, Johnny said as he offered Harry his hand. Harry glanced down at his hand and nodded at him instead. Yeah, you look a bit alike, he lied. Johnny was tall and thin, with sharp cheekbones and dark blonde hair. Hannah was one of the shorter girls in their year and had light blonde hair and round cheeks. No, they don't, Jordan laughed as he slid to the floor next to Johnny. Johnny's adopted. Really? Harry asked curiously. Why? One of the Gryffindor girls sighed dramatically at Harry's question. You can't just ask people why they're adopted, she said. It's rude. I don't mind, Johnny pulled a small bag out of his pocket before leaning back and smirking up at Harry. My parents were on drugs. Hannah's dad's my uncle. My mom was a squib and she shacked up with a muggle junkie, and then they had little old magical me and started doing crank. They dropped me off at my uncle's house when I was a baby and never came back. Probably died in an alley somewhere. Son of a bitch, Harry breathed. That's what my aunt told me about my parents. Which apparently was the wrong thing to say, because the other kids all looked at him, with varying levels of curiosity on their faces. Your aunt said your parents, James and Lily Potter, the bloody war heroes, were druggies, Davies said with his bloodshot eyes wide. Yup, said they dropped me off and didn't want me. Fred wrapped his arm around Harry's shoulder again and squeezed him lightly. What else can you expect from muggles who hate magic? Angelina, Harry's 95% sure that's her name, snorted. Did they really hate magic? Davies asked. Whatcha got there? Fred asked Johnny loudly while shooting a dark look towards Davies. Pot, Johnny said with a crooked grin. Want some? Don't you dare, Fred Weasley. Angelina shook her finger in his direction. Wood will kill you. I'm not scared of Oliver, Fred laughed. All right then, how's it work? Harry watched as Johnny used his wand to light the little joint he rolled. Harry had seen loads of kids smoke before. Cigarettes and pot were as interchangeable in the youth shelters. He'd hide in every once in a while as water and liquor. He'd never smoked it before, but he'd had a lot of offers before he came to Hogwarts. Fred reached for the joint after Johnny lit it, and raised it to his own lips. Cheers, he said before taking a deep inhale. Fuck, Fred coughed loudly as he exhaled the smoke and handed the joint back to Johnny. That's terrible. That's 'cause you didn't do it right. Harry laughed along with the other kids, except for Angelina, who looked disapproving. You're supposed to hold the smoke in longer, ain't you? You smoke? Johnny asked him. Not really, Harry shrugged. Just seen it a lot, haven't I? Want some? Johnny offered Harry the joint. Harry hesitated for a moment, and an image of Snape's disappointed face drifted through his already fuzzy mind. He thought about how mad he would be if he knew Harry was even at a party past curfew, let alone smoking and drinking. But then he remembered how Snape thought he was sick and stuck his chin out stubbornly. Sure, Harry accepted the joint and took a deep inhale. He held it in as he counted to 10, then gently blew it out. Like that, he grinned at Fred before passing it back to Johnny. Pass it here then, Jordan said. After that, Harry, Johnny, Fred, George, Jordan and Katie took turns passing it around until they'd burnt through 2 joints. Angelina, Alicia, and Davies all turned down the offer but watched, drank, and laughed as the rest of them slowly got high. I think I'm floating, George laughed. I'll hold you down, Angelina giggled, sounding a little drunk, as she threw herself on top of him. That's our cue to move, Harry, Fred said, offering Harry his hand to get to his feet. Come on, I don't want to watch my brother snog Angie. Harry laughed and let Fred pull him towards the group of dancing students, where he was surprised to see Blaze dancing rather closely to a bloke with dark black hair. Wanna dance? Fred yelled in Harry's ear, shouting to be heard over the music, which was much louder in this area. I dunno how, Harry laughed. Teach me. Fred smiled brightly as he grabbed Harry's hands and pulled him right up close to himself. You were too far away, Fred said. It's like this. Fred wrapped his arms around Harry's waist and quirked an eyebrow up after he did it. This okay? Yeah, Harry said as he wrapped his own arms around Fred's waist. Brill in it. Fred laughed and started moving his hips back and forth in a fast rhythm that Harry tried to mimic. You said you don't know how to dance, Fred cried after a few songs passed as Harry continued copying his moves. You've tricked me, Potter. Just doing what you are, Harry laughed. Guess you're a good teacher. Fred leaned down until his mouth was next to Harry's ear. I'm good at a lot of things, he whispered. Harry wasn't sure if it was the alcohol, or pot, or just the whole evening, but he felt rather light-headed as the blood in his brain rushed south at Fred's whisper. Yeah, he said back just as softly. Suppose you don't want to prove it, do ya? Fred leaned back to look at Harry, and his blue eyes lit up. "Can I kiss you?" he asked hesitantly. Harry didn't even stop to think about it. He just surged forward and pressed his lips against Fred. He's got nice lips, Harry decided, soft and warm. Fred slid one of his hands up to the back of Harry's neck. Harry gasped lightly at the feeling, and Fred took the opportunity to deepen the kiss. "Wanna go somewhere more private?" he murmured after he moved his mouth from Harry's lips to his ear. "Yes, please," Harry breathed. Fred laced their fingers together and pulled Harry off to a dark corner of the room. "Nowhere to sit, but it's private," Fred whispered as he began kissing the side of Harry's neck. "I can fix that," Harry murmured with a quick snap of his fingers. The tiny red love seat he conjured wasn't quite what he'd pictured in his head, but he'd never attempted conjuring while drunk before either. "You're brilliant," Fred said as he lightly shoved Harry onto the sofa and semi-straddled his lap. "Handsome, brilliant, funny." Fred trailed off as he continued kissing Harry's neck. Harry felt his face heat up at the praise. Can I touch you?" Harry asked while his hands hovered over Fred's back. "Please," Fred said, "can I touch you?" "Yeah," Harry said quickly as he ran his hands beneath Fred's light t-shirt. "Fuck, you're fit," he said as he felt Fred's tight muscles. "I don't just break people's arms during matches, you know." Fred laughed as he moved his own hands up Harry's back on top of his shirt. Harry tensed up at the contact and suddenly felt like he couldn't breathe. Fred was going to suffocate him. He took a few deep breaths and focused on the freckles on Fred's arms as he blinked away the white dots that were threatening to overtake his vision. "Here, trade me." Harry scooted over and pulled Fred down to the sofa before he threw his legs over his lap and scooted on top of him. Fred put his hands above his own head and gave Harry a serious look. "You sure this is okay? I don't want to do anything you don't," he said. Harry nodded eagerly. "Yeah, fine. See Mia." Harry pulled Fred's face to his own and lost himself for a few minutes as Fred and Harry eagerly explored each other's mouths with their tongues. "You taste like whiskey," Harry laughed as he moved his mouth to the other boy's neck. "Can I kiss you here?" "Yes, please," Fred sighed. "Can I touch your back?" Harry hesitated for a moment before agreeing. "Don't be weird," he murmured between light kisses to the side of his throat. "Why would I be weird?" Fred asked as he slowly ran his hands up Harry's back. "Oh fuck." Harry froze as Fred's hands made contact with his bare back. "What happened?" Fred asked. Harry felt himself heat up with shame as Fred was feeling the scars on his back. "Do you want to talk or?" Harry trailed off and lightly bit Fred's ear, something he'd liked quite a bit when Fred did it to him before. "Talk later," Fred agreed as he continued to explore Harry's back with his hands. "Merlin, you're hot." "You too," Harry said as he tried to readjust himself on Fred's lap. He could feel undeniable proof of the effect of, well, everything. Like this, Fred slowly put his hands on Harry's hips and repositioned him until each of Harry's legs were on either side of Fred. "You're killing me," Harry groaned. "Fuck." "I don't think that's a first date kind of move," Fred said in a breathy whisper as he lightly thrust his hips up into Harry's. "Fuck," Harry repeated as he could feel Fred's hardness against his own at the move. The two boys spent what might have been minutes, or hours, or maybe even days, slowly and eagerly exploring each other from the waist up, until Harry thought he might explode from all the contact. Fred lifted Harry up and turned quickly to switch their positions. "Don't lay on me," Harry said quickly. I don't think I'll like that." "I won't," Fred said as he slid to his knees on the floor in front of Harry. "Can I?" He flicked his eyes down to Harry's jeans and back up to Harry's. He could see that Fred's eyes were nearly black instead of their usual blue with as blown as his pupils were. Harry froze for a moment as Fred's question registered in his head. "You want me to do it to you?" Harry asked quietly. "Not if you don't want to," Fred said. "It's not a trade, Harry, it's an offer," he winked. "Yeah," Harry nodded at Fred before he leaned forward and kissed him. Nobody's ever done that to me before," he admitted softly. "Then prepare to be amazed," Fred said with a wide smile. "Are you sure it's okay? We can stop, I'm not in any rush here." Harry glanced around quickly and saw that nobody was anywhere near their private little corner of the room and nodded down at Fred. "If you want to, I do," he said. Fred kissed him once more before he slowly, gently, and carefully unzipped Harry's jeans. Harry threw his head back on the sofa and closed his eyes at the contact. He bit his lip in an effort to hold in the embarrassing noises his mouth couldn't seem to stop making. Afterwards, while Harry was seeing an entirely new kind of white stars twinkling in his vision, Fred smiled at him from where he was still kneeling on the floor. "You liked it?" "I'm gonna die, it was so good," Harry murmured lazily as his body relaxed into a state of pure bliss. "Jesus." Fred propped his upper body up on the sofa and started trailing lazy kisses across Harry's exposed abdomen. "We should probably..." But whatever Fred was about to offer was cut off by a lit wand suddenly being thrust in their direction. Somehow, in their state of bliss, Harry and Fred hadn't noticed the rest of the students quickly rushing out of the classroom when a professor initially appeared. Harry yelped as he quickly covered himself up at the sight of the lit wand. "Party's over," Lupin said sternly. "Fred, 25 points from Gryffindor, get to your dorm. Harry, 25 points from Slytherin." "Worth it," Harry said as he tried to stand up and staggered against Fred, who was also stumbling a bit. "Definitely worth it," Fred agreed. "We'll see if it's worth it when I contact both your parents," Lupin said. Parents are dead, ain't they?" Harry laughed. Lupin gave him a grim look. "Severus is." And for about the 50th time that night, for an entirely different reason, Harry groaned, "Fook." Chapter 24, Valentine's Day Part II. "Severus, I believe I have something that belongs to you." Severus had been dozing in his preferred chair in his private quarters when Lupin knocked on his door, abruptly jerking him awake. "Cummings," he called curtly. Lupin had better have a marvelous excuse if he thought 2:30 in the morning was an appropriate time to bring him. "Harry," he sighed, opening the door and seeing his ward sullenly glaring at the floor beside Lupin. "What in Merlin's name are you doing out of your dorm at this time?" "Attending a party," Lupin supplied as Potter remained stubbornly silent, and apparently quite the private after-party. Potter scowled at Lupin, his cheeks pinking up. "Piss off," he muttered. "Language," Severus said sharply. "What kind of party?" he asked Lupin, eyeing Potter closely and attempting to identify the familiar smell coming from him. He groaned out loud before he answered his own question, "The kind with alcohol." Potter reeked of whiskey. "Drugs and sex as well," Lupin added. "What?" Severus gave Potter a sharp look as the child glared fiercely at Lupin. "Potter, explain yourself, immediately." "Don't think I will," Potter slurred insolently. "Fucking slurred." Severus groaned again and pinched the bridge of his nose, a fruitless venture to hold back his newly emerging migraine. "Lupin, specifically, what happened?" "I was completing my rounds when I got whiff of a rather particular smell coming from an empty classroom on the 3rd floor." "Fucking wolf senses," Potter sneered at the floor. Lupin gave Potter an annoyed look, but otherwise ignored his interruption. "I followed the smell and found roughly a dozen students still in the classroom. I confiscated 6 bottles of whiskey, what seems to be an outrageous amount of marijuana. And my damn maps," Potter mumbled. "And interrupted 3 couples in the middle of lewd activities. One couple being Harry and Mr. Weasley," Lupin continued, now openly glaring at Potter in his annoyance at the interruptions. "Snape," Potter slurred. Alcohol, drugs, and sex. Potter may as well be a walking advert for a manic episode. How Severus had ever once thought Potter did not have manic-depressive illness was beyond him. Wishful thinking, perhaps. "Mr. Fred Weasley," Severus asked with minimal hopes that it was the more age-appropriate, even if it was still inappropriate, Ronald Weasley. Severus had been present at dinner last night when the students returned from Hogsmeade and Potter had all but floated to his seat, where he then exchanged shy smiles with the unusually quiet Fred Weasley. Severus had been pleased to see his first date had gone well, and hoped that Potter would eventually stop pretending he didn't exist and would inform Severus himself how it went. Now he wished it had gone terribly, just so horribly wrong that his 3rd-year ward would never have considered participating in lewd activities with a 5th year. "I believe it was Fred," Lupin said, "though I guess it could have been George." "It was Fred," Potter slurred. "Everyone thinks they're identical, yeah, but Fred got an extra freckle on his nose, plus his mouth's way." "Shut up," Severus hissed. 15-year-old Fred Weasley. Severus was going to have to inform Molly Weasley that her underage son was sexually involved with his underage ward. "Delightful." Potter suddenly slumped over against the side of the doorway and smiled lazily at Severus. Am I coming in to get yelled at or am I going to bed? 'Cause I think I can sleep now. Severus sighed heavily as he looked from Potter to Lupin. I am assuming you have doled out punishments to the students you found. 20 points each and 25 from Harry and Fred since they were rather. Lupin's scarred face blushed heavily for a moment in obvious discomfort. They were rather undressed when I found them. Fucking perfect. Then I shall take over from here. Severus grit his teeth as he thanked the wolf. Thank you for bringing Harry to me. Of course, Lupin said. He glanced down at Potter's slumped form before frowning again. Good luck. I want my fucking map back, Potter yelled at Lupin's retreating back. Thief, he muttered. Are you out of your mind? Severus hissed, pulling Potter into his quarters and slamming the door behind him. Don't touch me, Potter snarled, yanking his arm from Severus' grip and tripping like a drunkard at the motion. All touched out for the day, thanks. Disturbing. Drinking, Potter, really? You thought it was a good idea for a 13-year-old to get drunk on school grounds? What the fuck is wrong with you? Don't you mean are you out of your mind? Potter said, stumbling his way to the sofa. That's what you're thinking, right? Oh no, Potter did something crazy again. No, Severus said slowly, as he followed behind the insolent child. I am thinking, what possibly made you believe it was acceptable to attend a party with alcohol and drugs? And what kind of sexual activities did my underaged ward deem appropriate to participate in on school grounds? Don't think it's your business, Potter said as he sprawled across the sofa. Severus could see now that his eyes were hazy and unfocused. Think it's my business, innit? You think wrong, Severus growled, having no patience for this. I am both your head of house and your guardian. Your activities are very much my business, especially ones that could end with a disease. So if I want to kill a basilisk, no big deal, Potter sneered even as he tripped over the word. But if I want to have a drink, a smoke, and a shag, then suddenly you want to play dad, he laughed. Fuck off. Do not speak to me like that, Severus hissed, momentarily ignoring the implication that he was in any way approving of Potter killing a basilisk last year. I do not know what kind of game you think you are playing right now, but it is putting you dangerously close to being punished much harder than you already will be. Punish me then, Potter laughed again. He clumsily got to his feet and stumbled a couple of steps closer to where Severus stood. You can hit me if you want, yeah, or grab a belt. Maybe lock me in the closet for a few days. Come on, Snape, do it if it'll make you feel like you're in charge. God damn it. Potter, I am in charge, Severus said tersely. Sit down before you trip and break your fool neck. Ooh, am I Potter now? Potter laughed mockingly at Severus' slip-up. Come on, if you're going to punish me you might as well do it right, Potter said, his green eyes dull and unfocused. I probably won't even feel it. I think I'm high, he giggled breathlessly. Wonderful, fucking wonderful. You are a moron, Harry, Severus groaned. He was quite sure Potter was high. The closer the child got, the more pungent the earthy aroma clinging to him was. Are you going to tell me why you were attending a party when you should be in bed? Couldn't sleep, Potter said. Are you gonna punish me or are we playing games all night? 'Cause if so, I've got better places to be. You have detention until the end of the year, Severus decided, thinking quickly. Sit down. Worth it, Potter said with a drunken smile as he stumbled back to the sofa. Did you know I might like blokes? Thought Daphne was dead gorgeous, did I? And Lou's beautiful, but Fred changed my mind. Or seen I like both, probably not. It's weird, right? Jesus Christ. Potter was manic and drunk and rambling. About his sexuality crisis, apparently. Which Severus was decidedly not equipped to handle at his current level of anger and frustration. You obliviated the mind healer, and now you have to deal with the fallout, he reminded himself. He made finding or educating a Wixen mind healer, or at least a damn squib mind healer, his summer goal. Cancer research be damned. I cannot imagine how your sexual preferences are in any way related to an explanation for your behavior tonight, Severus said tersely. Needed to check, did I? Potter said, still smiling. Figured I'd give it a shot, see if things are better with a bloke when I'm drunk and older now. And guess what? You were right, it's way better, he laughed. Jesus fucking Christ. You understand that you risked expulsion for any one of the many illegal activities you participated in tonight, correct? Severus said, avoiding any sort of sex-related topic at the moment, especially as Potter framed his statement in a way that made Severus question himself for informing Potter that consensual sex was meant to be pleasurable for both parties. Pell me then, Potter said, it's not even a good threat. It was. You could have been hurt, Severus said instead. You were smoking marijuana and drinking alcohol. Were you aware that either one of those could cause irreparable damage to your internal organs, not to say anything of the damaging effect of mixing the two? No, it can't, Potter laughed. People do it all the time. And they die all the time, Severus said. You need help, Harry. You are behaving irresponsibly and impulsively. I'm not, Potter mumbled as he turned his head into the sofa cushion. Oh, what were you thinking then, before you began drinking alcohol and smoking with a group of older teenagers? Wasn't thinking nothin', Potter said, just did it. Severus desperately wanted to shake the child and scream, that is the definition of impulsivity, but he refrained. Instead he glared down at Potter and watched as his hazy eyes blinked slowly. We will speak more about this in the morning, Severus said sternly. He summoned a blanket from his cupboard and laid it on the brat and pulled his glasses off his face. Sleep and prepare an argument in your defense for in the morning. Potter sighed contentedly as he closed his eyes. Severus drug his recliner closer to the sofa, once again, and summoned the medication the Contessa sent him and watched Potter sleep for a while, thinking, considering, planning. By the time Potter opened his bloodshot eyes at 6 o'clock, Severus had slept not at all and prayed to Merlin that he could get through to the child. Oh, Potter whined pathetically, what's going on? You are in my quarters on the sofa, hopefully with a terrible hangover, Severus said coolly. Get up, we need to have a discussion. No, Potter mumbled as he turned and shifted on the sofa. Wanna sleep. Perhaps you should have slept last night, Severus said sharply. Get up now. No, Potter said stubbornly as he jammed his eyes closed. Argumenti. Son of a bitch, Potter yelped as Severus poured water on his head. What you do that for? He shook his wet hair out, momentarily looking like a green-eyed wet puppy, and glanced around himself quickly before snagging his glasses off the nearby table. You and I need to have a discussion, Severus said. You refused to get up and I resolved the issue. Potter blinked at him in shock before wincing. Thought you wanted me to sleep, he grumbled, not drown me. Severus felt a small stab of regret as he realized last night was likely the first time all week Potter slept more than an hour, though he consoled himself with the reminder that passing out from alcohol for a little less than 3 hours was scarcely better than maniacally staying awake. Perhaps you should have considered your sleep before you went to a party, he said stoutly, shoving his regret deep down inside. This was the time to be firm, not bend to Potter's ironclad will. Talk fast then, Potter said as he laid his head against the back of the sofa. My head hurts. Good. Potter opened one eye and narrowed them at Severus at his sharp tone. What's your problem then? What's my problem? Severus repeated incredulously. Do you not recall the events of last night? Potter scrubbed his face with his hands as he thought it over. Kinda, he admitted. I remember Lupin's a snitch. Lupin is a professor, Severus said, once again in a position where he was stuck defending one of the damn fools. He was obligated to inform me of your activities, just as I will be obligated to write to Mr. Weasley's mother of his activities last night. Potter shrugged and grimaced again at the movement. He said, that it? No, Severus barked. That is not it. Severus took a deep breath as he prepared himself to give his speech he rehearsed and perfected while Potter slept. Harry, I understand that you are in denial about your mental health, he said firmly, ignoring Potter's dramatic groan of dismay at the topic. However, I am unable to wait for you to come to terms with it, as it is now impacting your education, safety, and overall health. If you refuse to treat the illness, then I will have no choice but to have you admitted in the hospital for treatment. Potter sat up properly and gave Severus a wide-eyed look of shock. What? You can't do that. You'll find that I can, Severus said. You are a danger to yourself. I cannot spend every waking moment worrying that you will either cut your wrists open, or jump from the owlery believing you are capable of winged flight, or dying in some other scheme because you are ill and your mind is unreliably guiding you to situations where your life is in danger. Potter blanched at Severus, blunt recounting of his previous deeds, and these were only the ones Severus knew of. He was quite sure that Miss Granger's subtle question of how a lack of sleep impacts mental processing at the end of her class last Thursday had not been for academic research. Headache potion, Potter murmured as he broke away from Severus' impassive gaze. Severus grit his back teeth harshly as Potter summoned the potion and downed it quickly, likely before Severus had an opportunity to take it from him. Were you even going to ask? Severus said between his clenched teeth at the blatant act of disrespect. Would have, but you aren't asking me anything, are you? Potter sneered. If you can just make fucking stupid demands, then I can too. Watch your language, you are the child. Severus said loudly as he slammed his hand harshly on the armrest. I am the adult, Potter. I can make any demands that I damn well please. You would do well to remember that. Potter jumped to his feet at Severus' thoughtless slam and backed several steps away from him. Leave me alone, he cried in a trembling voice as he vigilantly watched Severus' hands. Doesn't it matter what I want? You've lost the plot. Severus inhaled very slowly, in an effort to not begin a screaming match with his twitchy and traumatized ward. Harry, please sit, I am not going to hurt you, he said much more calmly than he felt. I do care what you want, but in this instance I must insist. This, he pulled the medication bottle from his pocket and rattled it lightly, is meant to help you, and you desperately need help. No, I don't, Potter yelled. I don't want fucking crazy medicine. Watch your language, Severus yelled back, quickly forgetting his previous determination not to shout at the child. You will take this or you will go somewhere they will force you to. No, Potter shook his head and looked around the room quickly. No, I won't, you can't make me. I am your guardian and I can make you, Severus said. You need help before you end up dead because of it. Potter backed away a few more steps, and his eyes flicked towards the door. Then you're not my guardian anymore, he said softly. I quit. Neither of us are quitting, Harry, Severus said as gently as he felt he was currently able. All I am asking you to do is take this medicine. If it does not work or hurts you in any way, then we will try something different, okay? No, Potter repeated. I've seen people on pills like that before. They just laid there on their cots, just drooling and fucked up and stupid looking. I don't need it. You do, Severus said as he very slowly, and with exaggerated movements, rose to his feet. I will not allow it to cause you to become incapacitated in any way, I swear, child, but you will take it. Potter stepped closer to the door as Severus took a small step towards him. Black said I can move in with him, he said abruptly. He wouldn't make me go to a hospital or take pills. How could Severus have forgotten that Black had planned on asking Potter to move in with him yesterday? Probably because you've been focused on the chaos that a manic Harry Potter has been sowing, he reassured himself. It was an empty reassurance. He hadn't factored Sirius God-damned Black and his own impulsive offers to Potter into the equation when he had came up with this last-ditch effort of a plan last night. Severus closed his eyes briefly and counted to 10 before he responded. Black does not understand your mental health as I do, he said calmly. I will not concede my guardianship of you to him because you are refusing to accept treatment. I'll just leave then, Potter said. I don't need you. Severus pretended that the bluntly spoken remark did not cut him more sharply than any blade could have. Potter is ill, he reminded himself firmly. He doesn't mean the things he is saying. Unless he does, the more insecure part of his heart whispered. You don't mean that, Severus said. You are scared, confused, and likely coming down from a terrible manic episode, he hoped. You would leave our home instead of improving your health. I am not manic, Potter shouted. Quit saying that. You are, Severus said simply. It is not a weakness, Harry. It is only an illness like any other that requires treatment. I won't go to the hospital. You will not have to if you will take this medicine, Severus said quickly. It is used as a treatment for your illness. Potter glanced down at the pill bottle in Severus' hand before looking back up at his face. Severus saw a brief flash of hesitation in his green eyes before he blinked, and it was replaced with a look of stubborn determination. I won't, I don't need it, I don't need you. Potter hesitated, and Severus thought he could see a slight tremble in the child's lower lip before he continued. I'm moving out. You can have your house back. I don't want it and I don't want you. As Potter went to step towards the door, Severus, in his hurt and his shock, made an absolute foolish mistake. He reached out to grasp Potter's arm in an attempt to stop him from leaving. Harry, listen. Don't touch me, Potter hissed sharply before Severus, hand on his arm, erupted in a terribly burning pain. Severus quickly pulled his hand back and clenched his jaw in an effort to not show the pain that was burning through the veins in his hand. Potter faltered as he had one foot out the door. He looked helplessly at Severus and mouthed something that Severus thought may have been an apology before resolutely turning on his heel and leaving Severus' quarters. Severus cradled his hand to his chest and stared at his door as the burn faded away. His plan on strong-arming Potter into accepting treatment had entirely backfired. "I don't want it and I don't want you," replayed on a loop in his mind as he struggled to process what exactly just happened. He hadn't forced Potter to treat his illness. All he'd succeeded in doing was driving him straight to Black's arms. And away from Severus himself. Chapter 25, The Black Madness. Harry didn't storm out of Snape's private living area, he fled. He fled down the corridor to the Slytherin dorms and hoped like hell that Blaise had thought to grab his cloak last night. He wasn't sure what he'd do if he lost that too. He burst in their dorm, glanced around at his friends, sleeping forms, and summoned his invisibility cloak. "Oh, thank God," he whispered, as the silken cloth flew from behind Blaise's bed curtains straight to Harry's hands. Harry threw the cloak on over his head and shoulders and set off to the defense corridor. If Lupin could steal his stuff, then he'd just steal it back. He got the map fair and square, and Lupin had no right to take it from him. Harry hesitated outside Lupin's office and hoped he'd get lucky twice today, and Lupin would be in bed still. Or after Harry checked the time and saw it was 7:30, maybe breakfast. He took a deep breath and opened the door. If Lupin was in there, he'd hear it open no matter how slowly, quietly, or invisibly. Harry opened it. No sound. He poked his head in and was relieved to see Lupin wasn't in his office. Harry took a couple steps inside and focused on his magic as hard as he could. "I want the Marauders map. Bring me the Marauders map." When nothing immediately happened, Harry snarled and pulled harder on his core than he ever had before. "Now bring me my map now. And my dad made it. I got it fair and square. Lupin stole it. Now." Harry almost fell over as a rolled-up parchment flew in the room behind him and smacked him in the head. Lupin must have had it with him, he thought with a private smirk, as he snagged the map off the floor and darted quickly out of the room. He turned the map on and studied it until he found the path Fred and George must have used to get into Hogsmeade, and it was right beside the defense corridor staircase, which made it Harry's lucky break number 3 of the morning. Harry went over to the weird humpbacked, one-eyed witch statue and watched the map as a tiny Harry Potter dot put out a speech bubble that said Descendium. He hoped that was the password and not another weird insult. "Descendium," he murmured with his hand on the statue. The humpback slid open and Harry peered inside and saw it was a short drop to what was probably a tunnel. He swung his legs in and dropped right before the opening slid shut. "Give me a light, please," he ordered his magic gently. He didn't want to burn his eyes out if it responded as strongly as it did earlier when he yelled at it. He smiled when a normal-sized ball of light sprung to life. It looked like there was only one path through, so he turned the map off and tucked it securely back in Draco's jeans he still had on. Which was kind of gross considering all the things he did yesterday. He thought he probably needed a shower and then scoffed at himself. "You got weak, Potter. 24 hours without a shower and you're cringing." 10-year-old Harry would laugh at how posh he's gotten since starting at Hogwarts. Course, 10-year-old Harry would also never believe how much everything else changed. 13-year-old Harry hardly believed it himself sometimes. Harry walked up to the end of the tunnel and gripped his pocket knife tightly in one hand as he climbed up a short ladder through another trapdoor. "Fuck," he whispered as the opening of the door immediately set off an alarm in Honeydukes. Harry ran out the front door quickly, thankful for the cloak that kept him hidden since the owners stormed down the shop stairs just as Harry was running out the door. That was close, he thought as he headed to Rosmeter's pub. Apparently Honeydukes set an alarm of some sort during their off hours. Which, yeah, maybe he should have considered. Most Muggle stores did as well. He'd learned that the hard way when he was younger and trying to steal food and clothes from closed stores. Harry pulled his cloak off before he went in the 3 broomsticks and immediately looked around for Black. "Can I help you?" Rosmeter called from behind the bar with a bemused look. "Are you supposed to be here, Harry?" Harry debated for a second before deciding poor orphan Harry would be his best play right now. "I'm trying to find Black," he sniffled a little for show as he evaded her question. "We were supposed to talk about me living with him this summer, since he's my only real family left, and," Harry glanced up at the witch through his lashes, "and he said he'd tell me about my dad. They were best friends, you know." Harry looked back down at his boots and slumped his shoulders. Come on. "Oh, of course, dear," Rosmeter cooed. "He's not here, but I can point you towards the place he's staying. He told me he bought a house, guess I know why now, don't I? But he's still staying in his flat until the school year ends." She gave Harry a bright smile which he tried to shyly return. She looked around at the nearly empty pub and gestures towards the door. I can show you real fast. Thank you, Harry said earnestly. I know you're probably really busy. Of course, sweetheart, she said in an overly sweet voice. Sirius is a dear, and he's been talking about you non-stop. Really? Harry asked as he politely held the door open for her. What's he saying? If Black told her anything, Harry said to Grim, then he'd kill him and take his chances back in London by himself. Oh, he just brags on and on about you, Rosmita said as she led Harry towards a cluster of houses in the village. Talks about how great of a flyer you are, how good at magic you are. Honestly, I don't think there's ever been a prouder godparent in my pub. That's nice of him, Harry said, and it was nice of him, even if it didn't make any sense. Harry hadn't really given Black much reason to like him. Sirius is a good man, Rosmita carried on. He made some mistakes, but overall he's a good man. Harry hummed non-committally and let her prattle on as they walked up to a wide brick house. He's the door on the left, she said. He was out late, so he might still be asleep. I'd wager you could just go in. "'Kay, thanks for showing me," Harry said. "No problem," Rosmita said cheerfully, "but if anyone comes looking for you, I'll have to tell them where you went." Harry watched as the witch winked at him and strolled away in her sparkling red heels. Apparently, she was a little sharper than he'd given her credit for. Harry shook his head and squared his shoulders before knocking resolutely on Black's door. Once, twice, no answer. Harry shrugged before opening the door and slipping inside quickly. If Black was angry about it, then he'd just tell him Rosmita said he could. "Black," he called through an empty entrance room. "Maybe he's still asleep." Harry carefully walked towards the next door, keeping a tight grip on his knife. He opened the next door and glanced around to what seemed to be a one-room flat. There was a small kitchen off to the right side of the room, 2 doors in the middle where a sofa was situated, and a bed and wardrobe on the left side of the room. An empty bed. Fuck. He hadn't factored Black not being home when he came to see him. Harry grimaced at the sink full of dirty plates that were causing a gross smell in the small flat, and sat down on the edge of the sofa while he tried to plan his next move. He wasn't going back to Hogwarts until he knew Snape couldn't force him to go to a hospital or take any pills. His throat burned when he thought about giving up his house and summers with Snape, but it was better than becoming some kind of drooling zombie. Those people he'd seen on crazy pills weren't special, they weren't strong, they were just pathetic. And if Snape thought Harry was going to live like that, then he wasn't as great as Harry thought he was. Which was disappointing, but Harry didn't need him. He'd done just fine on his own before Snape, and he'd do fine now. Rosmita said Black was a good guy, and he liked Harry, and if he put a single finger on him, then Harry would hurt him. He didn't need Snape. Unless maybe Snape apologized, and swore to never bring it up again. Maybe. Harry laid back on Black's sofa and closed his eyes as he tried to think through his options. God, he was tired. Harry hadn't meant to fall asleep, and was shocked when he was awoken by a sharp crack of apparition. "Harry," Black cried happily, ignoring the way Harry had leapt to his feet with his knife drawn. "What are you doing here, pup?" Harry willed his heart rate to slow back down at his rude awakening. "Looking for you, aren't I?" Harry rolled the tension out of his shoulders and grit his teeth. "Can I still come stay with you this summer?" "Yes," Black cheered and did an odd little jump of joy, and Harry let out a relieved sigh. "This'll be great. Do you want to see the house now or let it be a surprise?" "Probably a surprise," Black continued before Harry could even answer. "That would be better." "Can my friend Theo stay too?" Harry asked hesitantly. "I told him he could stay with me." "Theodore not?" Black scrunched his nose for a moment before shaking his head. "Pup, his dad was a Death Eater. Not just any either, he was close mates to Voldemort himself when they were in school. So that kid was probably raised up in his eyeballs in dark magic," Black said. "He could be dangerous." "Theo's not dangerous," Harry scowled. "And we're he tried to remember what Susan called her and Harry before. "A package deal. We're a package deal. If Theo can't stay, then I won't either." Harry hoped that Black wanted him badly enough to let Theo stay too. Harry had made a promise, and he wouldn't let him stay at his dad's house a single night longer. "Fine," Black waved one hand and then immediately started bouncing around the flat. "He can come too. Oh, this will be great. Listen, I know you don't like Moony, but I'm hoping you guys can get along because we can all spend all summer together, and I've already got so many plans." Harry watched curiously as Black moved around the flat, seemingly purposelessly. He talked quickly about Quidditch matches, the World Cup and camping, then he'd pick up a plate and start talking about a motorcycle before putting the plate in a new spot it didn't belong. "Are you okay?" Harry asked hesitantly. He didn't want Black to agree to let Harry and Theo stay if he was drunk and then change his mind later. "I'm perfect now," Black said with a bright smile. "Have you ever been to the States?" "No, of course you haven't," Black scowled. "Damned muggles didn't take you anywhere interesting, did they? They're lucky I'm trying to stay out of Azkaban or I'd go talk with them." Black tapped his wand on the kitchen counter, then yelped when the dirty dishes started shaking. "Whoops," he laughed. "Happens sometimes. Anyway, what was I saying?" Harry didn't even get a chance to answer before Black was off on a new topic. This time about vacations maybe. Black was talking too fast for Harry to really follow. "Are you hungry?" What? Harry hadn't noticed Black had apparently changed topics again. "Oh, sure." He was starving actually. He hadn't really ate much the last couple of days. "I don't have anything here that's edible, but we could go to Rosmerta's and order you lunch." Black peered in his empty cabinets and spoke so quickly Harry barely understood what he had said. "Are you sure you're okay?" Harry asked, starting to worry that Black was actually drunk or something. "Right as rain," Black waved his hand as he kept digging through the cabinets. "Hey listen, do you want to become an animagus? Because I had a great idea." Harry was beginning to regret coming here. There was something wrong with Black. He hadn't acted like this the last few times Harry had been around him. He'd been normal then, and now he was acting. Acting completely mad. I should get back to school," Harry said nervously as he carefully moved towards the door. "We can write about this summer, yeah." "Don't go," Black spun around and gave Harry a wide-eyed look of surprise. "You can skip classes today." "It's Sunday," Harry said slowly, "and he checked the time, it's 1. "Even better," Black laughed. "Hey, what if you played hooky for a few days and we went on a trip?" "What kind of trip?" Harry asked, curious despite himself. "Any kind we want," Black laughed again. "We could take my bike out and go anywhere. We're both free, Harry. Free pup, we can go anywhere. Hey, Russia is beautiful in the winters. We could go there." Harry grimaced at the impulsive offer. He couldn't go to Russia, or anywhere really. "I'd get expelled," he said. "Dumbledore would kick me right out." "No the fuck he wouldn't," Black snarled, his sudden anger startling compared to his previous excitement. "Dumbledore owes me too really, and that's what I'll tell him if he says one word." "I really can't go, I'm sorry," Harry said, more anxious to leave as Black looked mad enough to hex him. "I've got classes." "Don't go," Black cried as Harry reached out for the door handle. "We need to make plans. Hold on, let me grab something to write this all down or I'll forget." Black laughed and turned back to the kitchen drawers to dig for something. Probably a parchment, but considering his current state, Harry wouldn't bet on it. The moment Black's back was turned, Harry grabbed the door handle and sprinted out both sets of doors to the yard as quickly as he could. He threw his cloak back on and just started running. Black was mad. He was just bouncing around his flat talking and not making any sense. And he thought he was having great ideas, but they were mad. Harry couldn't skip school and go to Russia, and they couldn't take a flying motorcycle to the States. They'd be caught and arrested. "He's just excited," Harry reassured himself. "That's all." He slowed down to a walk once he reached the familiar pathway back to Hogwarts and tried to sort his thoughts out. He's a bit impulsive, but he's not always like this, he thought. Maybe he's just having a weird day. An episode, a quiet part of his brain whispered. But Harry was impulsive sometimes. He had days where he had impulsive ideas. He hadn't really thought about playing Quidditch when he transfigured those feathers on his arm, did he? But Black was just rambling. Thought he had some grand plans, but they were crazy. He didn't make any sense at all. He wasn't even talking properly. "Your speech is also markedly worse." "Harry, you sound mad." Harry stopped in the middle of the abandoned path beneath his cloak and felt his breath coming quickly as his heart started to race. "You do remind me quite a bit of Sirius. He'd get these grand ideas for pranks and plans for the future. Nobody seemed to understand that these weren't just crazy ideas. They were plans and they were amazing, and Sirius was a genius for coming up with them. But Black wasn't a genius, he was mad. "Let's play hooky and go to Russia." "I'm trying to be an owl, it's a brilliant idea I had." Manic episodes are experienced by intense feelings of euphoria, high energy, decreased need for sleep, increased impulsive behavior, a sense of invincibility, and nonsensical thought patterns. Harry started sprinting towards the Hogwarts gates again, as his mind began assaulting him with everything Snape had said to him before that he'd brushed off. You need help. You sound mad. It's not your fault, it's an illness. You are behaving erratically and impulsively. It's called manic depressive illness. When he made it back to Hogwarts grounds, Harry made it as far as the edge of the Black Lake before he sunk to the ground and yanked his cloak off so he could breathe properly again. Black was really mad, just like Snape said. Because Snape wasn't a liar. He was a bastard, a bully sometimes, stubborn, rude. But not a liar. He said Black was mad, and he is. He said Harry was mad, ill he said, and he probably is. Sissa tried to tell him too when he was sick, depressed his mind whispered over the summer, didn't she? And Hermione said his mental functioning was messed up because he wasn't sleeping. And he wasn't eating. And he was acting just as crazy as Black was. Because he was crazy. Like Black. Harry pulled his knees to his chest and laid his head down on them. He was just as bad as Black, and the only person who offered to help him who didn't treat him badly over it was Snape. Snape who he screamed at, and tried to hurt with his words, and did hurt with his magic. Snape who was his first friend and helped him when he was new to Hogwarts. Helped him before Hogwarts in fact, when he took him shopping and made sure he didn't look pathetic when he first came to the school. Snape who kept his secrets and taught him occlumency to protect his mind from others. Snape who healed his broken bones and never made him stay in the hospital wing. Snape whose little fox patronus was because he cared about Harry, cared about him as much as his own mum had apparently. Who searched for him when he was expelled and gave him his own house and became his guardian so Harry never had to go back to Surrey. Snape who knew he was sick this summer and didn't just get rid of him. He stuck around anyway and kept trying to get Harry to accept his help. Harry threw it all away. And he couldn't fix it now. Snape surely hated him. He'd never forgive Harry for picking Black this morning. Harry certainly wouldn't forgive one of his friends if they went and became friends with Finnegan or Parkinson instead of him. Which meant Harry was alone and had a sickness that he had no idea how to fix. He didn't want to be like Black, he wanted to be like Snape. Strong, powerful, free, smart. Someone people listened to and respected, someone that couldn't be hurt. Except Harry did hurt him. And now he was right back where he started alone. Harry kept his head down as he held back the pathetic tears that were trying to escape. He'd messed up so badly, and he had no idea how to fix it. He doubted if it could even be fixed. Harry James Potter. Harry's head snapped up from his knees at the sound of someone screaming at him. He turned slightly and saw Susan, along with all of his other friends, jogging towards him. "We have been looking for you," Susan shouted again with her hands on her hips. "Where have you been?" "Hogsmeade," Harry said hoarsely as they all stopped and stood beside him. "Why were you in Hogsmeade?" Hermione asked. "Because I'm an idiot," Harry admitted as he put his head back down to his knees. "Hey," Harry sensed as Susan knelt down beside him and put her hand on his back. "Are you okay?" "If Fred fucking Weasley hurt you, I swear to Merlin I will kill him," Blaise swore. "No," Harry said with his face buried. "I'm not hurt, I'm just stupid." "No you aren't," Susan said softly. "What's going on?" Harry turned his head again and saw all his friends were watching him with curious and pitying looks. "I don't want to talk about it," he mumbled. "Just leave me alone for a while, yeah." "Ruung," Susan sang out. "Here, what we're going to do, Hermione and Theo are going to go study because they're swats." "Hey," Hermione and Theo cried out indignantly. "Draco and Ron are going to go back to flying," Susan continued. "Blaise is going to go back to bed because he's got a hangover and is being a prat today." "Am not," Blaise grumbled. "Neville is going to go with me to go play cards, and Luna is going to stay here with you. Okay." Harry shook his head, but apparently her question was actually a demand because everyone else immediately began complying. Luna plopped down beside him, on the opposite side from Susan, and everyone else murmured goodbye, as they split up just like Susan ordered them. "I'll see you tonight when you're done thinking that you're anything less than the strongest and most brilliant wizard ever," Susan said as she made her way over towards where Neville was waiting. "And when you remember how amazing you are, then you'll remember I'm the best friend in the world, and you'll come tell me all about why you were in Hogsmeade, and why you went to a party with Blaze and not me." Harry nodded his head and gave her what he hoped was a grateful smile. As soon as everyone else was gone, Luna began stroking his hair in the comforting way he'd gotten used to. "Is Sirius Black disappointing?" she asked softly, somehow guessing at part of his thoughts. "He's crazy, Lou," Harry said. He could tell Luna anything. She stayed right by his side when he was dealing with the Dementors, depressed his mind said again. She stroked his hair and wiped his tears and didn't tell anyone about the nightmares he had or the things he screamed in his sleep. If there was a better person in the world than Luna Lovegood, Harry hadn't met them. "He's crazy," he said again, "and, Lou, I think so am I." "Why do you think that?" "Because," Harry trailed off as he tried to think of all the reasons Snape gave before, "because people can't turn themselves into owls, can they? And they probably can't add gills to themselves without that plant Neville mentioned. And it's not normal to not sleep for more than a week, is it?" "No, Harry," Luna said gently, "it's not." "So then I'm crazy, Lou," Harry admitted in a hoarse whisper. "I don't know what to do." "You aren't crazy, Harry," Luna reassured him softly. "You're sick." "Oh?" Harry turned his head to look at Luna, and saw that she was watching him with her big silver eyes, and her lips were pulled back in a gentle smile. "Sick," he repeated, "that's what Snape said." "Did I ever tell you how my mom died?" Luna asked. Harry shook his head. He knew Luna's mom died, and that she saw it happen, and that's why she could see the Thestrals, but she never said what happened. "You would have liked her," Luna said with a fond smile. "She was a quite extraordinary witch. She went to Boatbattens when she was a student. She had a master's in potions, just like Professor Snape. But then she got sick and she started experimenting with her potions. She said she heard people in her head telling her to do it, telling her what to do. And she wasn't careful with her potions, not like I am. And one day, one of her experiments backfired and it killed her." "And you were with her, yeah?" "Yes," Luna kept stroking his hair while she talked. "I was with her and she died because she was sick and she wouldn't get help." "Snape offered to help me," Harry admitted, "and I told him I didn't need him, said I wanted to live with Black instead." "Professor Snape won't care about that," Luna said. "He'll want to help you, and I want you to let him. Please, Harry." "I can't," Harry said. "He won't help me, Lou, because I fucked up. And I don't know how to fix it because everything feels so horrible right now. And I don't think Snape ever going to talk to me again." I told him I didn't need him, but I think I do," he admitted with a weak sniffle. Luna grabbed his hand with her free one and held it firmly in her own. "There's nothing you can't fix, Harry," she said gently. "I don't know how, tell me how," he pleaded. "Ask the Nargles or something, please." "I don't need the Nargles to tell me what you should do," she said with a gentle squeeze to his hand. "All you have to do is go to him. He'll help you, no matter what you said. Professor Snape loves you." "He's gonna be so mad, Lou," Harry said. "I hurt him, burnt his hand, and I said the meanest stuff I could think of." "And you think he's going to hurt you back?" Luna said. "Course he will, why wouldn't he?" Luna grasped Harry's other hand and held them both tightly as she looked in his eyes. "Professor Snape loves you," she said. Her voice was still as melodic as usual but firmer and more stern now. "He would never hurt you, Harry, never ever." Harry shook his head. Luna didn't get it. If someone hurt you, you hurt them back. That's the way the world worked. Harry might not know how love worked, didn't know enough about it to even question Luna's claims that Snape loved him, but he knew how pain worked. And he knew how it felt better to hurt other people when they had hurt you. "Come on, Harry, I'll go with you." Luna got to her feet and tugged gently on Harry's hands to pull him to his feet. "Let's go find Professor Snape." "'Kay," Harry said quietly, throwing his cloak over himself and Luna so they weren't stopped by anyone in the corridors. The cloak was made a little pointless by Luna's soft singing, but Harry liked to hear her sing, so he didn't say anything about it. He let Luna guide him towards Snape's office while he made some quick decisions in his head. He knew Snape was going to be angry, probably angrier than Harry had ever seen him before. Snape would think about how Harry hurt him and would hurt Harry back to get even. And Harry would let him, just this once, because he'd earned it. He'd take whatever punishment Snape gave him and would just grit his teeth and bear it. He'd done it before at Surrey when he was being punished and in London when he'd been earning something to eat. So Snape could do what he needed to do, and then they'd be even again. And then Harry would ask him to help him. He'd even break his own rule about asking for things and he'd ask. He'd even fucking beg if it meant he didn't end up like Black ever again. Whatever it took, if it meant at the end of it, Harry wouldn't be sick anymore. It will be worth it, he told himself firmly. You can go now, Lou, he said quietly as he squared his shoulders and prepared himself to knock on Snape's door. He didn't want Luna to get hurt, or have Snape be mad at her when he went in. He didn't want her to see him beg either. It'll be okay, Luna said with a tight hug. You'll see. Harry pulled his cloak off and stared at the door. Whatever it takes, he told himself firmly as he pictured Black's crazy behavior from earlier. Whatever it takes. Harry took a last deep breath and knocked firmly on Snape's door.